Chapter 531. Guinevere. In the hotel restaurant, Noah, Erica, and Liliana finally gathered at the original table. They got along as usual, as if nothing had happened just now. However, after hearing Noah tell them the whole story of his meeting with Guinevere, Erica and Liliana looked at each other in dismay. I didn't expect that such an amazing person would appear in such a place. Erica clicked her tongue, but her pretty face was full of fearless, gorgeous smile as usual. The god ancestor that Princess Alice mentioned is this lady, right? God ancestor. The Queen of Witches. Liliana's expression was a little complicated. Although she is the distant ancestor of us witches, in terms of existence, she is neither a god nor a human. She came here and sent such an invitation. What is her purpose? Even Lily can't guess the purpose of the god ancestor. Noah looked at Liliana. You and that god ancestor are witches. If you are both witches, you should know something about Guinevere, right? Although we are all witches, that lady was originally the goddess of the earth. Even if the witches' ancestors used to serve the goddess of the earth as witches, in the end, we are just serving them. Liliana pondered for a moment and then shook her head. Speaking of understanding, as the goddess of the earth in mythology, I believe that many people know about Guinevere's divinity. However, what we need to know now is god ancestor Guinevere, not goddess Guinevere. That's true. Erica nodded and agreed with Liliana. Even if it was the goddess of the earth, now that she has reincarnated and stayed in this world as the god ancestor, we really don't know what that lady intends to do. Hearing this, Noah was speechless. In this world, because the god of disobedience would appear from time to time for various reasons and bring disasters to the earth, people like Erica and Liliana, who grew up in orthodox magic associations, could be said to have a good understanding of the gods. Since even Erica and Liliana couldn't guess the purpose of Guinevere's invitation from her background, Noah, who had only stayed in this world for about 3 months, naturally wouldn't know. In other words, there is no way to get any useful information? Noah scratched his cheek. I thought it would be more advantageous to ask the witch about the witches. Hearing Noah's words, Liliana lowered her head in shame. On the other hand, Erica thought of something and suddenly smiled. No, your way of thinking is correct. Naturally, you have to ask the witch to understand the matters of the witch. While saying this, Erica took out her mobile phone and clicked on the address book. However, that god ancestor is the Queen of Witches. Although Lily is an excellent witch, in terms of status, she doesn't know the secrets of the god ancestor. In this way, it's clear what we should do. Liliana tilted her head suspiciously, as if she didn't understand the meaning of Erica's words. Only Noah nodded in relief. That is to say, we have to consult those witches who are better than Lily? Hearing Noah's words, Liliana understood. As a prodigy with the rank of Grand Knight, Liliana's talent and strength in the field of witches were top-notch. It was unknown if there were more than 10 witches in the whole of Italy who could surpass Liliana. Of the 10 top-notch witches, Noah only knew that one was the only one he had ever met. Alice? The corners of Noah's mouth slowly rose. Speaking of which, it was Alice who brought Guinevere to me. Among the people we know, no one knows Guinevere better than her, right? That's it. After pressing a few buttons on the mobile phone, Erica stood up from her seat. That princess has now retired, but she still secretly controls the entire Sage Council. She asked the people of Red Copper Black Cross to be the middleman and set up a connection with the Sage Council. In this way, we should be able to contact Princess Alice. After that, Erica directly put the mobile phone next to her ear and walked aside to make a call. With Erica's departure, the scene suddenly became a little awkward. Well. Touching his nose, Noah said to Liliana embarrassedly. I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to. Liliana naturally knew what Noah was apologizing for, and her face turned red again. I know, although you are a demon king with terrifying power, I know very well that you are a very gentle and considerate person. You definitely wouldn't do such a frivolous thing. I was too careless before, I also apologize to you. With that said, Liliana stared at Noah. But Erica is right. As a king, you should pay a little attention to your behavior. No matter how urgent the matter is, I still hope you can knock on the door. That way, you won't see such a disgraceful scene. So didn't I apologize? Noah waved his hand and shook his head with a dry smile. I will be careful, please forgive me this time. Forgive. Liliana thought of something and lowered her head. After a while, she raised her head with some determination and looked at Noah. Before that, can you allow me to ask you a question? Question. Noah nodded. Go ahead. Liliana looked a little hesitant, but in the end, she spoke in a mosquito-like voice. I've heard before that you have a fiancé. That should be true, right? Noah didn't expect Liliana to ask about this matter. After being stunned for a moment, he smiled bitterly. It's true. Is it? Liliana's expression became a little forced. She should be a very outstanding woman, right? Instead of saying that she's outstanding, it's better to say that she's naturally by my side. Noah didn't hide anything because of Liliana's performance and chose to answer truthfully. After all, we are childhood sweethearts who grew up together. We used to be friends, are now lovers, and will become family in the future. It's just such an ordinary development. Is that so? Liliana lowered her head, making it impossible to see her expression. From your words, I can tell that you love each other deeply, right? Deeply? Noah laughed at himself. I only realized later that they had waited for me for God knows how many years before they finally got my reply. They would even laugh and cry because of my reply. Compared to their love for me, my love for them is so shallow that it makes people want to despise it. Is that so? Liliana didn't know what to say, but then she was stunned and raised her head in astonishment. Wait. You just said them, right? What do you mean by them? What do you mean? Noah couldn't help but feel puzzled. They are them? What's so strange about that? There are many strange things. Liliana couldn't help but raise her voice. According to what you said, could it be that you have more than one fiancé? Noah just realized how unbelievable his statement was, and his expression suddenly became unnatural. I have two fiancés. Two fiancés? Liliana's expression gradually changed from astonishment to disbelief, and then from disbelief to disbelief. In the end, there was only grief left. I see, so you're this kind of person? Wait. You must have misunderstood something. Noah quickly explained. Although it's a little strange to have two fiancés. But our feelings are real. There's absolutely no falsehood in it. Absolutely. At this moment, a voice interrupted. You don't have to explain so desperately. With a fake smile, Erica appeared behind Noah and sneered. We clearly understand that you're still a man after all. You don't have to explain anymore, we understand. No. You don't understand. You don't understand at all. Noah instinctively retorted, but then he reacted. So you've been eavesdropping? Chapter 532. In the end, the fact that Noah had two fiancés seemed to give Erica and Liliana a whole new understanding of their master. And it was a very bad side. No matter what Noah said to Erica and Liliana, the two girls didn't seem to be listening. It was unknown whether it was because they started to despise Noah's character from the bottom of their hearts, or because of some reason that they didn't listen to Noah's explanation at all. This made Noah extremely vexed. In the end, Noah gave up and stopped paying attention to them. After all, Noah did have two fiancés at the same time. Since he could do such a thing, he couldn't blame others for misunderstanding him. Noah also knew that. In any case, no matter what outsiders or the world said, Mira and Lisanna were already Noah's people. Noah had long decided to be responsible for these two fiancés who grew up together with him. Just like what he said just now, they were friends in the past and lovers in the present. In the future, Noah, Mira, and Lisanna would also be family. That was a fact. Therefore, Noah didn't intend to refute them anymore, and allowed Erica and Liliana to think whatever they wanted. However, Noah didn't know if it was just his imagination. Noah felt that ever since they found out that he had 2 fiancées and the lucky pervert incident in the morning, the heavy atmosphere that had been lingering around Erica and Liliana disappeared completely. It was like when one was obsessed with whether to eat meat or vegetables at night, only to find that one could eat both together with one's appetite. Therefore, one began to regret the fact that one had wasted a lot of time because of one's obsession. In the end, it all came down to one sentence. Don't guess if you don't understand women's hearts. In short, Noah gave up on guessing. At a certain moment, a letter suddenly appeared in the space in front of Noah, Erica, and Liliana and floated to the table. Seeing this, Noah, Erica, and Liliana's expressions turned serious. Noah didn't reach for the letter. Instead, he looked at Erica and Liliana. Is this a letter sent using the magic of letter delivery? Erica and Liliana nodded at the same time. Then, Erica opened the letter on the dining table. After glancing at it, her expression immediately became weird. What's wrong? Noah asked suspiciously. Is there anything strange? Erica didn't say anything. Instead, she placed the letter in her hand on the table, allowing Noah and Liliana to see its contents. The contents of the letter were as follows: after receiving Miss Erica's contact, I was about to meet with His Excellency Noah, but I was seen by my housekeeper. Then, the housekeeper set up a barrier in the museum, intending to stop me from running out. So, please wait a moment, Your Excellency Noah. I'm thinking of an escape plan and have decided to contact you again in the future. Of course, if the king can come to England and destroy the entire London, I can hold an emergency meeting and swagger out of the museum. From the content of the letter, Noah, Erica, and Liliana could clearly see the excitement of the sender and the joy of the end of the letter, which was just short of a loving heart. Noah, Erica, and Liliana all fell silent. Needless to say, it was easy to guess who sent this letter. However, recalling the elegance and nobility of the woman with the beautiful title of princess, who would have thought that the letter was sent by her? In short, there were too many things to complain about. As I recall, Alice seems to be the princess of some duke's family, right? Noah asked cautiously. The reason why Alice is called a princess is not only because of her family background, but also because she is as noble as a princess, right? There's no need to doubt it, Erica explained without hesitation, as if she wanted to dispel Noah's thoughts of escaping. Princess Alice is related to a great noble in Europe in the past. In addition, she is associated with the Magic Association of the Templar Knights, which is similar to the Copper Black Cross and the Bronze Black Cross, which nurtures the successors of the Templar Knights in the past. In other words, the Magic Association that nurtures us knights has close contact with the descendants of the Druids. As a result, the noble lady has extraordinary knowledge and wisdom. She is known as the most outstanding noble lady in Europe. She is such a flawless princess. Princess Alice's health has always been poor. After her condition worsened 6 years ago, she withdrew from the position of the chairman of the Wise Parliament and recuperated in a mansion in London, England, Liliana added. I heard that the princess often complains to her acquaintances that she can't go out at will because her family is worried about her health. Speaking of which, last time Alice did say that because of her poor health, she could only come to me in the form of a soul avatar. Noah rubbed his brows as if he had a headache. At that time, Alice couldn't have snuck out, right? That should be the case. Erica shrugged. The enchantment in the mansion mentioned in the letter may be the type that seals the entry and exit of spirits in order to prevent the princess from escaping again. Noah laughed dryly. The image of Alice as a noble lady in his mind began to collapse in Noah's mind little by little, turning into the playful girl who usually wore the mask of an obedient girl. Undoubtedly, she doesn't have to think about how to escape. Noah sighed. Let's go directly to Alice's mansion in London, England. This shouldn't be a big problem, right? Erica and Liliana fell silent at the same time. After thinking about the feasibility, they nodded tacitly almost at the same time. Even if she doesn't use her original body, if she uses spells to create a soul avatar, it will still burden her body. Liliana said, a little worried about Alice's physical condition. So, it's a good choice for us to visit her directly. It's indeed worrying. Erica also agreed with Liliana. For the sake of Princess Alice's health, even if it's a little detour, let's go to London, England. I just don't know when the god of disobedience, in Napoli that Guinevere mentioned will appear. Noah patted his cheeks to cheer himself up. Let's hope nothing happens before we come back. There's a branch of bronze Black Cross in Napoli, Liliana said. I'll ask them to pay attention. Once there's anything strange, they'll report to me immediately. Noah was relieved. However, it's really rare for you to take the initiative to look for news of God. Erica glanced at Noah. I thought that after the past 3 months, God's matter had completely become a taboo in your heart. I didn't expect you to take the initiative to go to the source of the incident this time. Have you finally gotten over it? Or, are you too close to Salvatry and infected by the king's battle lust? Liliana said worriedly. I hope you don't become the kind of person who will do anything to make the god of disobedience appear in order to fight God. Yes, just be like before. In the past 3 months, whenever Noah encountered something related to God and discovered that the god of disobedience was about to appear, he would not hesitate to stop it and let the god of disobedience, who should have appeared, return to the myth. Of course, he would also encounter the god of disobedience, who could not be stopped from appearing. At that time, Noah would come to his senses and make a prompt decision to fight the other party. However, God was not so easy to deal with. Even if Noah's own strength could deal with them, the other party was not the kind of person who could be killed easily. Some of them even had the ability to resurrect. Therefore, in the past 3 months, Noah had not succeeded in killing a god. Knowing that these gods were difficult to deal with, Noah really wondered why he was able to successfully kill the 2 highest-level gods at the same time. Sure enough, it was because Lana and Mekhl did not take Noah seriously when he was still a human at that time. They were not like the gods he encountered in the past 3 months who felt that there was nothing strange about losing to the God Slayer, and could escape without hesitation. Don't worry, Noah said such a sentence righteously. I will never become the same kind of person as that idiot. Yes. Absolutely. Chapter 533. The origin of Greenwich's Wise Men Parliament was entirely due to the formation of a group of busybodies, which gave rise to its initial form of existence. Magicians, esoteric scholars, fairy doctors, and other people who had a deep relationship with magic. There was a fine line between experts and ordinary scholars, market researchers, priests, monks, priests, artists, capitalists, nobles, royalty, and so on. These ambitious people with ambition, curiosity, and extraordinary wealth gathered together to exchange information and establish a group. This was the origin of the Sage Parliament. Then, this group gradually began to accumulate wisdom, and its influence gradually increased. It even established a headquarters in Greenwich, London, and gradually became today's Sage Parliament. In order to promote and assist the brain group of mysticism and magic research, and to accumulate information about the god of disobedience and the god Slayer, an organization was established in an attempt to deal with the disasters brought about by these existences. This was the Wise Men Conference of today. When the Sage Parliament was mentioned, the first thing that came to people's minds was not a famous expert from the Sage Parliament, nor was it a scholar with extraordinary wisdom. It was not even the current chairman, but the former chairman of the association. The daughter of Duke Goding's family, Alice Louise of Navarre. She was generally known as Princess Alice. The former Speaker of Greenwich's Sage Parliament, and the current Special Advisor. There was no doubt that the first thing people thought of was this noblest, most elegant, and most cultured and wise lady in all of Europe. Of course, the place where such a noble existence lived was not a place that anyone could enter. And now, Noah, Erica, and Liliana were here. This was one of the few high-class residential streets in London, England. In one corner, there was a luxurious mansion with a vast courtyard, a 4-story tall building, and 4 towers. Its appearance was very much like an ancient castle. There were many luxurious houses like this in this high-class residential area. Therefore, the building itself was not too special. However, the owner of this mansion was only a woman in her 20s. She was known to everyone in the magic world as the noblest woman in the world of magic. Noah, Erica, and Liliana arrived at the entrance of this luxurious mansion. They were looking up at the mansion in front of them as if they were admiring some beautiful scenery and were about to give some comments. Of course, the conversation between the three of them, who looked extremely relaxed, was not what ordinary people imagined. "You can indeed feel the existence of the barrier," Noah said gloatingly. "In addition to her poor health, the princess's escape plan is probably still incomplete, right? Unfortunately, the barrier set up here not only to prevent spirits from entering and exiting, but also has defense and alarm functions. It should be used to deal with external enemies such as intruders," Erica commented casually. "But it's normal. After all, it's the princess residence. It's necessary to set up heavy defenses. I heard that Princess Alice and the Black Prince are old enemies. In the past, she also joined forces with the current commander-in-chief of the Red Copper Black Cross, Paul, to fight against the Black Prince together. This matter is quite famous." Liliana sighed. "If the Black Prince himself came, the defenses here would be as good as non-existent, right? But as the king's subordinate, he wouldn't do something as ungentlemanly as attacking the residence of a sick and weak girl. I don't think this worry is necessary." Erica smiled sweetly, her eyes shining brightly. "I think it's not a bad idea if the Black Prince comes to attack this house now. In that case, Erica Brantley, the Grand Knight, who inherited Paul Brantley's title of Crimson Demon, can once again write that legendary battle record. In the past, the deeds of Alice and Paul working together to fight against the Black Prince Yarek were indeed quite famous. Because of this, Paul was given the title of Crimson Demon. Now, this title had fallen into Erica's hands as she wished. Because they had become Noah's entourage and Noah's spokesperson in Italy, Erica and Liliana's status in their respective magic associations had soared. They had gone from being popular to being the most popular. Under such circumstances, Erica did not hesitate to ask the Red Copper Black Cross to inherit the title of Crimson Demon, and it was approved without any objections. In the Red Copper Black Cross, only Erica and another respected Grand Knight were competing for the title of Crimson Demon. Therefore, after Erica became Noah's entourage and received the honor of being the king's trusted aide, the title of Crimson Demon fell on her without any objections. With Erica's courage and ferocity like a lioness who was unwilling to fall behind others, it was not surprising that she would have the idea of fighting against the Black Prince Yarek like Paul did back then to prove that she had the qualifications to inherit the title of Crimson Demon. "Do you want to imitate your uncle?" Liliana said to Erica, adding insult to injury. "Paul is a paladin, and he can only resist the Black Prince to a certain extent after joining forces with Princess Alice. Erica, do you really think you can compare to Paul?" "Why not?" Erica smiled confidently. "Uncle was already 25 years old when he got the title of Crimson Demon. I got the same title when I just turned 16. Many people are still talking about it behind my back. That's just because they can't stand others living too well and are jealous of you." Noah shook his head with a chuckle. "Besides, Alice and Mr. Paul can resist the Black Prince Yarek, not in the real sense of a confrontation of strength, but in a certain extent of glorious achievements. Humans have no way to resist a Godslayer. Everyone knows this clearly. No one expects you to really fight against a Godslayer after inheriting the title of Crimson Demon, so just ignore them." After saying that, Noah looked at the luxurious mansion again. "Okay, let's go in quickly. I've already contacted them on the plane. They should have received the news of our arrival," Erica said directly. "I'm sure the arrival of the king can still make those who take care of Princess Alice dare not neglected, right?" As soon as Erica said that, the door of the luxurious mansion opened, attracting the attention of Noah, Erica, and Liliana. Taking a closer look, on both sides of the door of the mansion, maids lined up in 2 rows and bowed in this direction. Then, a shrewd woman wearing an office lady's uniform similar to that of a secretary walked out from inside. She was wearing thin-rimmed glasses and had a fierce expression, looking like a strict tutor or butler. This person was the head maid of Alice's mansion. In short, she was someone who worked as a butler, head maid, and secretary. Her name was Elisen, and it was said that she was as shrewd as she looked. However, when such a figure faced Noah, there was a hint of nervousness on his face. I didn't expect the Demon King to come to London in person, and to the Princess Mansion. What a surprise. Elisen said in a trembling voice. You are Lord Noah, right? May I know why you have come to the Princess Mansion this time? Let me make it clear that our sage council will not succumb to the Demon King's obscene power. Hearing this, the corners of Noah's mouth twitched. Even Erica and Liliana turned their backs and snickered secretly. It seemed that from the perspective of the sage council, which specialized in the study of God's layers, every Godslayer in the world was a cruel and incorrigible demon king. This could be seen from Elisen's performance. I have a lot to say, but it's probably useless to say anything at this time, so I'll simply say it in a way that you can understand. Noah laughed bitterly. Anyway, you can't stop me no matter what I want to do. It's better to be straightforward and let me meet Alice. That way, I won't raise this place to the ground. Will this make you compromise? Elisen's expression froze completely. In the end, as expected, Noah was granted passage. Chapter 534. Noah didn't know if it was because of magic or because of the residence itself, but as soon as he entered Alice's residence, he felt like the temperature in the surroundings had suddenly become moderate, just like a summer villa. It was rather comfortable. Under Elisen's lead, Noah, Erica, and Liliana moved to the top floor of the residence. When they arrived at the hall on the 4th floor, Elisen stopped in his tracks, turned around, and pretended to be calm as he spoke to Erica and Liliana. Her Highness isn't usually in good health, so she can't see too many people. Apart from Sir Noah, it's best if no one else enters. Erica and Liliana looked at each other before shifting their gazes to Noah, as if they intended to let Noah make the decision. Noah pondered for a moment and nodded. All right, it's enough for me to go see Alice. You guys wait here. Erica and Liliana finally nodded and retreated to the side obediently, as if they were obedient to his words. In fact, after 3 months of interaction, Noah, Erica, and Liliana were already rather familiar with each other and could be considered good friends. Erica and Liliana usually wouldn't speak to Noah with honorifics. Instead, they treated him as equals. It was only in front of outsiders that Erica and Liliana would strictly abide by the settings of their identities. It wasn't only because they couldn't behave improperly in front of outsiders, but also because they didn't want to embarrass Noah, the nominal owner of the residence. And this behavior naturally made Elisen, who viewed Noah as a terrifying demon lord, fear him even more. His attitude also became much more respectful. He reluctantly led Noah to the door of a rather majestic room. This is Her Highness's bedroom. Elisen's voice was still filled with nervousness. I've reported to Her Highness that His Majesty is here. She is waiting for you inside, so I hope you can be magnanimous and not make things difficult for Her Highness. Seeing that Elisen had completely assumed that he had come with ill intentions, Noah could only laugh bitterly in his heart. For many people, the word God Slayer was a synonym for terror. This was because the God Slayers had the power that humans could not resist. The current God Slayers had all done things that brought catastrophic losses to humanity. It was no wonder that others would call the God Slayers the Devil King. As for the Wise Men's Parliament, which specialized in researching the God Slayer, the horror of the God Slayer could be directly presented to everyone in written form. Therefore, Elisen should have long known about the various deeds Noah had done after becoming the God Slayer, right? For example, he had defeated Tony, Warban, and Luo Hao. He had even defeated 3 kings of the same rank. Of course, the most important thing was the losses that Noah had suffered in order to defeat these people, as well as the various kinds of destruction that had happened in the past 3 months. As a member of the Wise Men Council, Elisen, who clearly understood how terrifying Noah was naturally worried that Noah's arrival meant that there was going to be another disaster. However, humans could not resist the God Slayer. Therefore, it was completely natural that they would be afraid, scared, and nervous. Facing a member of the Wise Men Council like Leeson, who was deeply ingrained in the horror of the God Slayer, no matter how much Noah explained, they would not listen. In the end, Noah did not explain. "I need to talk to Alice about something very important." Noah sighed. "So, don't do anything like surveillance or monitoring. As long as you can do it, then in the end, everything here will be fine. Is that okay?" "Yes, yes." Leeson's face was tense. He suppressed his nervousness and then obediently left. Seeing this, Noah also reached out his hand, pushed open the door in front of him, and walked into Alice's bedroom. Upon entering Alice's bedroom, the first thing that entered Noah's eyes was an extremely luxurious bed. Not only was it luxurious in shape and scale, but there was also a veil-like ceiling that fluttered back and forth under the breeze from the window, making a pleasant sound of gauze rubbing against each other. And on such a bed, Alice, who was wearing pajamas, had her eyes closed. Her hands were clasped together and placed in front of her chest as she laid on top of it. Strictly speaking, Noah had only seen Alice twice. However, both times, Alice had always had a noble and elegant look, just like a real princess. However, at this moment, the Alice that appeared in front of Noah lying on the bed was not as noble and elegant as before. There was only weakness. Because of her poor health, Alice's pretty face was slightly pale. Although her breathing was stable, it was also very weak. She looked exceptionally pitiful. Coupled with her stunning beauty, it was believed that as long as it was a man, upon seeing this scene for the first time, they would not be able to resist the urge to go over and kiss Alice. After all, the feeling that Alice gave people was too much like Sleeping Beauty. That delicate beauty could make every man's heart ache, and thus have the idea of, if I go over and kiss her, she will wake up. Noah did not have such an impulse. However, looking at Alice's sickly appearance, and then recalling the noble appearance that she used to appear in front of him, even Noah could not help but feel a little distressed. At this time, in front of Alice's bed, which was in front of Noah, the space suddenly fluctuated with a spell power, and gradually condensed into a figure. That was Alice, who usually dressed beautifully and absolutely matched the title of princess. However, that was only Alice's spiritual clone. "Welcome to my residence, Sir Noah, should I say that?" When they first met, Alice used a look of hidden bitterness that she would never have in the past, and stared pitifully at Noah. "Undoubtedly, it will be fine to wait outside. I will definitely be able to think of a perfect escape plan to go outside. Now that you are here, I have no excuse to sneak out. Do I go out again?" Hearing this, Noah did not know whether to laugh or cry. "You still have the nerve to say that. Your body is already in such a state, and you still want to sneak out. Of all people to make life difficult for, you just have to make life difficult for yourself. It is also very boring to stay here all the time." Alice was rarely awkward. "Someone like Sir Noah who can travel all over Italy all day long will not be able to understand me. It doesn't matter whether I can understand you or not. What is important is whether you can understand your own physical condition." Noah rolled his eyes, walked past Alice's spiritual body, and came to the bedside of the sleeping Alice. He sat on the edge of the bed, reached out, and smoothed a strand of messy hair on Alice's forehead. There are really people who don't take care of themselves. It is unbelievable. Noah's behavior was completely a habit that he developed from taking care of a group of cursed children in the world of Dark Bullet. However, Noah's intimate behavior made Alice a little shy in the eyes of herself. Casually touching a girl's body or something, it is also unbelievable. Oh. Is it? Noah glanced at Alice's spiritual body, and the corners of his mouth curled up. I remember that 3 months ago, when I was fighting with Luo Hao, Warban, and Doni, I did not casually touch a girl's body, but a girl took the initiative to kiss me. Alice was triggered by Noah's words. She finally recalled this matter, and an embarrassed expression appeared on her pretty face. At that time, I was only using my spiritual body. It was a doppelganger. Not the real body. So it's fine. Yes. That's right. That's it. Looking at Alice's spiritual body, who was a little incoherent, Noah suddenly smiled, and the hand that was smoothing Alice's hair on her forehead changed to a state of caressing Alice's pale cheeks, and he said in a mocking tone, "You are right, the spiritual body's words don't count, so let me take away the kiss from the real body." WH. What? Alice's spiritual body was stunned on the spot. Then, in front of Alice's spiritual body, Noah, who was sitting on the edge of the bed, began to lean down and put his face close to the lips of Alice's real body lying on the bed. Huh. Alice's spiritual body began to panic. Wait. Sir Noah. Are you serious? Ignoring the panic of Alice's spiritual body, Noah closed the distance between them and kissed Alice's pale lips. Chapter 535. Alice Louise of Navarre was a princess. Whether it was in terms of family background or temperament, this lady was a real princess. Unfortunately, the noble princess had now become a veritable sickly sleeping beauty. Therefore, if someone was in Alice's dormitory now, he would definitely mistake this scene as a prince trying to kiss the sleeping beauty in a classic fairy tale. Under the panicked performance of Alice's spirit, Noah did not hesitate to capture Alice's lips. Alice did not expect that Noah would really take away her lips when her body was asleep. For a moment, she stood there in a daze. Under such circumstances, Noah, who took away Alice's lips, did not have any bad thoughts in his heart. Almost at the same time when the soft touch of Alice's lips was transmitted to his nerves, the image of a pattern began to appear in his mind. It was the pattern represented by the priest incarnation. A human-shaped pattern in gorgeous clothes with open arms to the sky as if he wanted to hug the entire sky. When Welslana appeared in Sardinia, the image was a shining 15-year-old boy. That was the fifth incarnation of Welslana, who was a hero and a saint, who guided people and protected them, boy. Now, the incarnation of boy had been derived from the incarnation of priest. Mastering the same power as Welslana's boy, and even the incarnation of priest, above that, Noah also had the ability to grant others protection and blessings. So, Noah held Alice slightly in his arms and kissed Alice's lips gently. At first glance, it was like a prince who was about to kiss the sleeping beauty. However, Noah and Alice, who were about to use the power of the priest incarnation, were actually not a prince and a princess to be precise, but a king and a protector, the dominator and the dominated. Ugh! Alice's actual body let out a soft moan, almost as if she was sleep-talking. Alice's clone was at a complete loss when she saw such a scene unfold right in front of her. It was as if her original body was being kissed by someone else. For a moment, her entire mind went blank. She didn't know what to do, and she started to panic. Meanwhile, the pale face of Alice's main body started to turn rosy. Noah could clearly feel it. In his own cup, Alice's originally extremely weak body had begun to gradually awaken vitality under the stimulation of the little bit of magic in his body. Just like the grass glowing with a bright green color after the rain and the breathtaking vitality, she gradually regained her strength. Alice's body was originally affected by excessive consumption of spiritual power, so her body began to lose vitality. This gradually became weak, and in the end, she was completely unable to move at all. She could only rely on her avatar to move outside. The more she used the power of her avatar, the weaker Alice became, almost falling into an endless cycle. Therefore, now, Noah had to rely on his own power to awaken the vitality in Alice's body, so that Alice could regain her previous ability to move. So, when Noah and Alice's lips unconsciously touched, a channel-like thing had quietly opened. A channel of spell power that couldn't be seen with the eyes. Through this channel, Noah could convey the strongest protection to Alice. Feeling the opening of the channel of spell power, Noah increased his own spell power, and in the process, refined the pure spell power into the power of protection. He let it surge from the inside of his body to his chest, then from his chest to his throat, and finally passed through his throat to his mouth and poured into Alice's body. Woo! Alice's body, who was in deep sleep, made a short and painful sound. However, under the continuous infusion of the spell power that was refined into the power of protection, the outline of Alice's body began to emit a faint halo. And in this process, Alice's originally weak body, under the support of the powerful protection, glowed with strength like a new life. The power of protection was originally a kind of power similar to blessing. With the support of this power, people without power would have the right to use power for a short period of time, the unfortunate people would have a short period of luck, and the weak people would also have a strong body until the power of protection refined by the protector was exhausted. The reason why Alice's body was so weak was entirely because Alice had an ability that others didn't have. That ability was called spiritual sensing. Alice's phantom body, the ability of her avatar, was derived from this ability. However, this ability would erode the human body, making Alice's body very weak. As long as she went out for a while, she would be exhausted and her body condition would be out of balance. Therefore, when she wanted to appear in public, Alice would create an avatar. By controlling the avatar, she could communicate with the surroundings like a healthy person. Generally speaking, the avatar couldn't touch anything. However, Alice could make the avatar act like a real person by using both spiritual sensing and telekinesis. Apart from eating and drinking, it was basically no different from an ordinary person. However, it was because of this ability that Alice's body became weak. Therefore, the more avatars she created, the worse Alice's body would be. It was because of this that Leeson set up a barrier to prevent avatars from entering and leaving the hall. He didn't let Alice create avatars and let them run around, so as to prevent her body from becoming even worse. However, with the support of the protection ability of Noah's avatar, this situation would be improved. Noah's curse power was originally above that of an ordinary god slayer. And the power of the avatar of priest was generally above that of the avatar of teenager. With the combination of the two, once Noah's refined protection power was poured into Alice's body, then this protection power would become the power that supported Alice's weak body to move. In this way, until the protection power in Alice's body was exhausted, her body would be no different from that of an ordinary person, and she would be able to live a normal life for at least 1 or 2 years. It couldn't be said that it would give Alice a strong body, but it would still allow Alice to have a body that could move freely. Therefore, Noah continued to refine the pure curse power into the power of protection and infused it into Alice's body. He only stopped when Alice's body couldn't take any more power. Then, he gently parted his lips. Alice's avatar had already disappeared at an unknown time. The pale face of Alice, who was held in Noah's arms, had been completely replaced by a rosy color, and her breathing had also become stronger and more powerful. Then, Alice's eyelids trembled slightly, and she opened her eyes. Looking carefully, those beautiful big eyes were already covered with water vapor, and it almost made Noah have the feeling that he would be sucked in by those eyes. Just when Noah was about to look away, Alice's slightly shy voice sounded. "Can you let me go first?" This one sentence made the atmosphere of the scene become slightly awkward. After all, Noah hugged Alice tightly, and it made Alice more or less shy. However, to be able to hold the most elegant and noble princess in the whole of Europe in his arms, and to taste her lips until just now, Noah's actions today would definitely set off a storm in the entire magic world. Fortunately, there was only Noah and Alice present, and no one else. At that moment, Noah suppressed the strange feeling in his heart, and gently let go of Alice in his arms, picked up a pillow, and put it behind Alice's back, letting Alice sit on the bed while leaning against it. "Thank you," Alice said in a mosquito's voice, and her pretty face was slightly red. She didn't dare to look at Noah, and Noah couldn't help but secretly laugh. Even a noble lady who was called a princess was just an ordinary girl in terms of the relationship between a man and a woman. How is it? Noah touched his nose and asked in amusement. "Do you feel much better?" "Yes." Alice pretended to be calm, and forced herself to show an elegant smile as usual, but it gave Noah a feeling of shyness. "I can feel a very powerful force lodging in my body. The power of the blessing will allow you to live like a normal person until it is exhausted." Noah smiled slightly, and then teased. "When the power is exhausted, I will replenish it for you." Alice immediately lowered her head in shame and anger. That was Alice's first kiss in the truest sense of the word. Chapter 536. Thank you very much, Your Majesty, for spending so much effort on my body. After a while, Alice seemed to have finally calmed down. As usual, she showed an elegant smile to Noah and greeted him with an impeccable etiquette. Although I've been blessed by Your Majesty, this human body doesn't seem to be able to adapt to the power of God in a short period of time. If I want to move freely, it will take about a day or so to adapt. Now I can only lie in bed and can't greet Your Majesty. Alice's dignified way of speaking made people feel that her shy appearance just now was simply deceptive. However, Noah could see that it was not that Alice really didn't mind that her first kiss was taken away by him, but that she just wanted to hide her emotions. If he directly exposed this kind of thing, it would be too unromantic. Therefore, Noah shrugged and deliberately pandered to Alice's performance, saying with an expression as if nothing had happened. It's okay, it's not an opportunity for anyone to have a conversation with Princess Alice's real body. I'm already very satisfied. Is that so? Alice's smile was still elegant. It's really an honor to satisfy Your Majesty. You'd better be. Noah smiled bitterly and began to change the topic. Actually, I have something to ask of you this time. When Miss Erica contacted me, she basically told me about it, but she didn't tell me the details directly. After all, it's still inconvenient to talk over the phone. Alice nodded to Noah. If it's something I can help you with, I'll try my best to help Your Majesty. That's the best. Noah looked straight at Alice. Guinevere, you should know this god ancestor, right? Lord Guinevere? Alice's face showed a look of surprise. Has Lord Noah already met Lord Guinevere? You can consider it a greeting. Noah narrowed his eyes. However, it seems that this god ancestor didn't just want to greet me. I don't know what she's planning. If possible, I'd like you to tell me about the god ancestor. Hearing this, Alice frowned slightly. She shook her head as she pondered. I'm really sorry. Although Lady Guinevere is the most powerful queen of witches, and we do have detailed information about her, I really don't have much information about Lady Guinevere that I can tell Lord Noah. It doesn't matter. You said that the god ancestor fell from the original goddess of earth for some special reason and was reincarnated, right? Noah waved his hand. I don't know much about Guinevere's background, but from the information you gave me, I can more or less speculate. The god ancestor came to me not long ago and invited me to go to Nabali, saying that the god of disobedience would appear there. I don't understand why he invited me to go there, so if you think of anything, please tell me. The god of disobedience is about to appear in Nabali? And Lord Guinevere invited Lord Noah to go there? Alice was stunned at first, then fell silent. Noah didn't disturb Alice, but quietly waited by the bed with his arms crossed, waiting for Alice's answer. After a while, Alice raised her head, and her beautiful big eyes directly met Noah's eyes. Since Lord Guinevere invited Lord Noah to go to Nabali to witness the appearance of the god of disobedience, there must be a purpose. Although I don't know what Lord Guinevere's intention is, I have a piece of information that may help my king. Information? Noah's eyes lit up and asked. What information? Lord Guinevere has been looking for someone. Alice's expression became solemn. It's a god known as the Last King. The Last King? Noah was stunned. What god is that? If we knew, then we wouldn't have to deal with Lord Guinevere so much, and Lord Guinevere wouldn't have to work so hard to find the whereabouts of that god. Alice smiled bitterly. We only know that the Last King is the last king to appear in the world, and he is also the god of steel. The last king to appear in the world? Steel? Noah's eyebrows began to wrinkle. Noah didn't know what the last king to appear in the world meant. But Noah, who had been familiar with the knowledge of various mythological systems, knew the word steel. The word steel here had the meaning of steel and also the meaning of weapon. It referred to those heroes in the myths who wielded weapons made of steel, possessed skills that no one else could match, and had once slain dragons and snakes. For example, in the legends, the hero who cut off the head of the snake demon Medusa and offered it to the goddess of wisdom Athena Perseus. For example, Siegfried, one of the gods that Tony had slain, had his authority of the steel protection usurped by Tony, and had once bathed in the blood of a dragon. For example, in Japanese mythology, the conquering god who killed the Yamata no Orochi and obtained the Kusanagi sword from its body Susanoo. Another example, in China's investiture of the gods, the third prince who pulled out the tendons of the dragon and skinned the dragon Neza. These heroes, who had weapons made of steel in their hands, had slain dragons and snakes in myths, or had an unusual relationship with dragons and snakes, with the so-called steel. As far as we know, Lord Guinevere had an unusual relationship with the last king when she was still a goddess, and she has been trying to awaken the last king. Alice said to Noah. So, Lord Guinevere has always had a different obsession with steel. You mean? Noah said with some relief. The god of disobedience that appeared in Nabali this time is very likely to be steel? I'm afraid so. Alice nodded heavily. Otherwise, Lord Guinevere wouldn't have appeared in front of the God Slayer and the god of disobedience so easily. In that case, what does she mean by inviting me over? Noah asked in confusion. If the steel that appeared is the last king that she wants to awaken, then inviting me over is the same as telling me that I can destroy it, right? No, it should be the opposite. Alice's eyes flashed. It is precisely because Lord Guinevere can't confirm whether the god of disobedience that appeared as the last king that she invited you to Nabali, right? Hearing this, Noah also understood. In other words, Guinevere wants to use me to confirm whether steel is the last king or not. I'm afraid so. Alice sighed aloud. After all, Lord Noah is very special because he became a god slayer, because he killed two of the highest level gods of disobedience at the same time. Not long after becoming a god slayer, he successively defeated Marquis Warban, Hierarch Luohao, and Salbat Lei Qing. He has great power, but after all, he has only been a god slayer for a short time. It is understandable that he wants to use you. Use me? Hearing this sentence, Noah smiled very happily. Very well, that's enough to know. At least it makes me understand that the god ancestor can be heavy-handed and doesn't need to be merciful. Alice was suddenly stunned. Looking at the happy smile on Noah's face because of his strong personality, Alice smiled sweetly. Well, it's really you. If not, it would be boring. Hearing that Alice suddenly abandoned honorifics and made a somewhat rude remark, Noah blinked doubtfully. No, don't mind, I'm just talking to myself. The most noble and elegant lady in Europe showed a beautiful smile to Noah. However, Lord Noah, I hope you can listen to me. No. It's 2 pieces of advice. Advice? Noah looked at Alice. Princess Alice had extraordinary spiritual power and knowledge. This was something that everyone in the magic world knew. So, even Princess Alice in front of him used the word advice to Noah, so Noah had to take it seriously. Then, Alice said such a sentence. I hope you don't take Lord Guinevere lightly. Also, you need to pay attention to one person. Chapter 537. Don't take it lightly. Pay attention to a person. Noah carefully considered Alice's words. You told me not to take it lightly when facing Guinevere. Is it because of the seal you mentioned before? When he met Alice for the first time, she had told him that there was some kind of seal in the body of the god ancestors. It was a seal that, at the cost of one's life, could allow the god ancestors to regain the power and posture of the goddess of earth in a short time and transform into the god of disobedience. The god ancestors were very powerful enemies for human beings. According to the level of human beings, the god ancestors were at least at the level of the paladin, the highest level of human beings. They were even above the paladin and could rival the mythical beasts. However, for the god slayers, the mythical beasts and the paladins were not powerful enough. No matter how many of them there were, it would be useless. However, if the god ancestors released the seal in their bodies at the cost of their lives, then the god ancestors who recovered the posture of the goddess of disobedience would be able to rival the god slayers. In this way, even the god slayers could not ignore the god ancestors. It was only natural that Alice would give such advice. "That is indeed the dragon snake seal," Alice replied as she made such a statement. "However, I told you not to take it lightly, not only because of this, but also because of Lady Guinevere's own uniqueness." Her own uniqueness? Noah was stunned. The god ancestors are already very special, aren't they? Then, Lady Guinevere will be even more special, because she is the highest queen of witches, Alice said, which surprised Noah. "You may not know, but the highest queen of witches will have a guardian deity around her. Lady Guinevere has a deity protecting her." "What did you say?" Noah was shocked. "Guinevere has a deity protecting her?" "Yes." Alice emphasized her words as if she was trying to increase the credibility of her words. "I've had several dealings with Lord Guinevere, and I've also seen Lord Guinevere's guardian angel. If Lord Noah wants to deal with Lord Guinevere, he must not only be careful of Lord Guinevere releasing the dragon snake seal, but also of the guardian angel around him." Hearing this, Noah finally understood how difficult it was to deal with Guinevere. Not only could she restore the form of the goddess of earth by undoing the dragon serpent seal in her body, but she also had a guardian by her side. In that case, even if Noah really wanted to deal with Guinevere, it would be very troublesome, right? After all, the worst-case scenario was to face two gods at the same time. Coupled with the upcoming appearance of Steele's god of disobedience in Nabali, Noah was likely to face a situation where he had to deal with three gods. "Previously, I had to face three kings. Now, do I have to face three gods?" Noah couldn't help but laugh bitterly. "Do I have to be so unlucky?" "Well, if it's Lord Noah, this level of difficulty can be easily solved." Alice winked playfully. "You're the most special king. Since you can defeat three kings, you can also defeat three gods, right? It'd better be that easy." Noah rolled his eyes. "So, who is the person you want me to pay attention to?" "Yerek." Alice's face turned serious. "His full name is Alexander Gascoigne, known as the Black Prince. He's a king like you." "Yerek." Noah pondered. "The Black Prince will also come?" "I've said it before. The Black Prince Yerek has some connections with Lord Guinevere, and he's also very interested in the last king that Lord Guinevere has been looking for. If he knows what Lord Guinevere is doing now, he'll definitely go, right?" Alice cast her gaze on Noah. "Lord Noah has already fought with Marquis Vauban, Hierarch Luohao, Sarbat Lay, and others. The God Slayer is an existence beyond common sense. I believe you're well aware of that." After saying that, Alice's expression was a little worried. However, Alexander has a decisive difference from these kings. Therefore, you may feel that he is easier to deal with than the other demon kings, but please be careful. That will cause you to fall into a trap that will lead to a crushing defeat when you fight him." "Oh?" Noah's eyebrows suddenly raised. "Is Yerek that difficult to deal with?" "Yes." Alice nodded without hesitation. "All the kings you've fought before are basically experts who are obsessed with the process of battle. They're true warriors. Only Alexander is different from the other kings. Rather than calling him a warrior, it would be better to call him a strategist." Noah had also heard a little about this. The Black Prince Yerek was different from the other god slayers. He was full of intelligence, good at wisdom, and did not like to fight head-on. He was used to devising strategies to fight back against the enemy. Noah had heard about this more than once from Erica, Liliana, and even others. Now, as Yerek's old enemy, Alice, who once worked with Paul to fight against him, said so. Her persuasiveness was not ordinary. Thinking of this, Noah suddenly felt that he understood why Alice and Paul could fight against Yerek after joining forces. Because Yerek was not a god slayer who was good at head-on confrontations. In this case, Alice might be able to counterattack with an equal level of strategy and make the Black Prince fall into some kind of trap, right? In short, the confrontation between Alice and the Black Prince was not so much a confrontation, but a confrontation of strategies. In addition, with the help of Paul, the highest-level human powerhouse, the holy knight who could compete with the mythical beasts, Alice might really be able to resist Yerek to some extent. On the contrary, a god-slayer like Noah, who was better at head-on confrontations, might be schemed against and defeated even if his strength was above Yerek. This was why Alice asked Noah to pay attention to Yerek. That man has a keen sense of smell. He may have noticed Sir Guinevere's actions and arrived in Napoli. Alice finally reminded. Sir Noah may also clash with him. Please be careful of that man. That man is not a gentleman. He will definitely choose to deal with his enemies by hook or by crook. I understand. Noah raised his eyes and smiled indifferently. Indeed, I have received your advice. My body is still adapting to the power of Lord Noah's protection. It won't be long before I can move normally. A mischievous look appeared in Alice's eyes, like a mischievous child playing a prank. When the time comes, I will definitely join in the fun. Ahem, to help. Is that so? Looking at the noble princess in front of him who was naughty and elegant, Noah could not help but have the urge to tease her. Perhaps because of his strong personality, Noah could not help but have the urge to tease those who were strong and noble. Once in the world of the Knight of the Sorcerers, it was because of this that he was able to play with the equally strong Qingzi. Now, seeing Alice's noble and elegant posture, Noah could not help but want to tease her. At that moment, Noah stretched out his hand, stroked Alice's cheek, and deliberately stared at her with fiery eyes. Then, do you want me to help you teach His Royal Highness the Black Prince a lesson? Alice's expression suddenly froze. Feeling Noah's hand stroking her cheek, looking at Noah's burning eyes, her noble and elegant posture suddenly disappeared, replaced by the panic of an ordinary girl. No. No need. Sir Noah, you should focus on dealing with Sir Guinevere and the steel that appeared. Is that so? Noah moved his face closer to Alice's face. Then, in order to win, shouldn't the noble princess give the warrior a blessing kiss or something like that? As Noah's face approached, Alice's face unconsciously began to turn red and hot, and her eyes became blurred. But. Undoubtedly, you just kissed me. Noah pinched Alice's chin and lifted her face. That doesn't count. Ugh. Looking at Promise's face that was getting closer and closer, Alice finally could not hold back her shyness. She closed her eyes, waiting for the moment to come. Seeing Alice blushing and closing her eyes, obediently waiting for the moment to come to be kissed by Noah, Noah laughed in his heart. If this kind of Alice was publicized, it would definitely make those men and women who yearned for Alice dumbfounded, right? At that moment, Noah lightly touched Alice's lips, and then left without any reluctance, laughing out loud. Thank you for your hospitality, Your Highness. After saying that, Noah directly got up, patted Alice's head, and waved his hand, smiling as he walked towards the door. Only then did Alice open her eyes, staring blankly at Noah's back as he left. Her hand unconsciously touched her lips, pressing it. Recalling the two different feelings of being kissed by Noah, Alice couldn't control her heartbeat. Her heart, which was hidden under her full breasts, started to beat faster, and her pretty face became redder and redder as she recalled the memory. After a while, Alice could no longer hold back the shyness in her heart, and hid under the quilt, whimpering. I'm such an idiot. Why didn't I avoid it? Chapter 538. Napoli, also known as the City of Naples, was one of the few metropolises in Italy. It was also a port street and a sightseeing spot. The beauty and elegance of this ancient capital even gave rise to the saying, "You can rest in peace after seeing Napoli." As one of the three major night sights in the world, the city of Napoli was not only illuminated by various lights at night, but if you looked to the east, you could also see a magnificent volcano 10 kilometers away. Napoli, known as the birthplace of pizza, was actually a university town. In 1224, the University of Napoli, which was established during the era of the Syrian kingdom, still existed. Because of this environment, there were unexpectedly many second-hand bookstores in the city. especially around Bellini Square on the Old Market Street, which was a very famous second-hand bookstore street. In such a city, located in a corner of the city of Napoli, there was an old market street. Near Garibaldi Square and the Great Cathedral, there was a market-style corner in the center of the city. There was a second-hand bookstore called Millie's House. The design of this store was very neat. Undoubtedly, it was an extremely small second-hand bookstore, but there were all kinds of old books of different sizes piled up in the store, exuding a unique atmosphere. Noah, Erica, and Liliana, who took a flight directly from London to Napoli, Italy, were now in front of the door of this second-hand bookstore. "We're finally here." Even Noah couldn't help but complain at this time. "It's the first time I've taken several flights so frequently. Even if there's nothing wrong with my body, I'm still a little tired mentally." Erica and Liliana nodded repeatedly in agreement. Looking carefully, whether it was Erica or Liliana, there was a trace of exhaustion left by the travel and tiredness in their eyes. "Lily." Erica forced herself to be energetic and said to Liliana, "Is the person who belongs to the Bronze Black Cross like you here?" "Yes." Liliana also pulled herself together and nodded to Noah and Erica. "Wait here for a while, I'll go find her." After saying that, Liliana went straight into the old bookstore. After a while, she came out with the owner of the old bookstore. It was a baby-faced woman whose age was completely unknown. She was wearing a very soft and beautiful dress with a lot of laces on it. "Diana Mildred greets the king." The baby-faced woman lifted the corner of her skirt and bowed solemnly to Noah. "Please forgive my lack of hospitality, Your Majesty. Miss Diana is a witch who lives in Napoli. Like me, she belongs to the Bronze Black Cross. She is also the wise teacher who taught me magic," Liliana added. "To me, Miss Diana is like a teacher." "Teacher?" "I'm not that old," Diana said to Liliana, puffing up her cheeks. "I did teach you the witch's witch arts, but I'm not your teacher." Is that so?" The corner of Liliana's eyes twitched a few times, and she laughed dryly. Seeing this, Noah and Erica also gathered together and started whispering to each other. "In other words, this Miss Diana is actually much older than she appears to be? At least that's what I know. You know that Lily and I are childhood sweethearts. When I first met her, I was only 7 years old. At that time, Miss Diana was already like this. It's been about 9 years since you were 7 years old, right? She's been like this for so long. There's nothing strange about it. As long as one cultivates the curse power to the point of perfection, the witches will be able to maintain their youthful appearance and body. Even so, time will always pass. If you look carefully, you will be able to see the crow's feet at the corner of Miss Diana's eyes. Then how old is she? It's better not to think too much about this kind of thing." Having reached such a consensus, Noah and Erica decided to turn a blind eye to this matter. Then, Noah stepped forward. "I'm sorry, Miss Diana. I believe you already know the reason why we came to Napoli from Lily. So, sorry, but can you tell me first if anything strange happened here? Are there any signs of the god of disobedience?" When it came to business, Diana also stopped smiling and nodded at Noah. "I understand. Please come to the shop first. Let's talk inside." Noah, Erica, and Liliana all nodded. Under Diana's lead, they entered the second-hand bookstore in front of them. On the second floor of the second-hand bookstore, there was a place that looked like both a living room and a library. Beside a desk, Noah sat on the only seat. Erica and Liliana stood behind Noah like guards and attendants. Diana stood in front of the desk, facing Noah, as if she was preparing to report to her superior. This arrangement clearly expressed the ranking of everyone present in the hall. Noah was not the kind of person who liked to enjoy the feeling of being superior, but being treated like this would not make him feel superior, so it didn't matter. In this situation, Diana took out a report in her hand. While flipping through it, she said to Noah, "Lily contacted me not long ago and asked me to pay attention to whether there were any unusual phenomena in Napoli. Since then, I have been investigating the signs of cursed power in Napoli. Finally, I detected a large amount of cursed power gathering in a corner of Nabali not long ago. Erica and Liliana, who were standing behind Noah, exchanged glances with each other. Even Noah narrowed his eyes slightly. In fact, after coming to Nabali, Noah noticed the phenomenon of a large amount of cursed power gathering in Nabali. Erica and Liliana did not have Noah's perception ability, nor did they have Noah's keen sense of cursed power as a god slayer, but the two girls were also very outstanding knights. Presumably, even if they came later than Noah, they must have more or less noticed the same phenomenon, right? But this was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that the place where a large amount of cursed power gathered, according to Liliana, seemed to be an underground ruin under the management of Bronze Black Cross that only witches could enter. Liliana had also entered that underground ruin. So, Liliana still remembered clearly what was in that underground ruin. So, Liliana spoke directly. Is the thing that gathers a large amount of cursed power Hera's pillar? Hera. In Greek mythology, the wife of Zeus, the god-king, had the same fate as Métis, the half of Athena. Like Athena, who was born in North Africa and worshipped by the entire Mediterranean region, Hera was originally the mother goddess of the Peloponnese. Although she was not the queen of the divine realm like Athena, she was also the highest goddess of the earth. However, when the feminist society was denied, and men began to monopolize the power and modify the mythology, Hera and Athena fell to the same end. The originally noble highest divinity was deliberately degraded, and Hera, like Métis, became the goddess of Greek mythology subordinate to Zeus. And the Hera's pillar symbolized the seal of Hera's snake. Just like the stone of Gorgon was the seal of Athena's snake, the Hera's pillar was Hera's snake. Today, this Hera's pillar was stored in the underground ruins of Nabali, which was managed by Bronze Black Cross. After noticing that there was a large amount of cursed power gathering in Nabali, Liliana used the Witch of Investigation to confirm that the cursed power came from the underground ruins where the Hera's pillar was stored. In this way, it was not difficult to guess the source of the large amount of cursed power. And Diana's answer confirmed Liliana's guess. Since the appearance of the Stone of Gorgon a few months ago, the Hera's pillar began to gather cursed power. It was not obvious before, so at first, we thought it was just the power stored in the god relic leaking out, and did not associate it with the god of disobedience. First, it was Athena, and now it's related to Hera? Noah frowned. But, shouldn't it be steel that appeared in Nabali? Let's go take a look first. Erica made a prompt decision. It's better to confirm it first. Noah immediately nodded in agreement. Chapter 539. Napoli was originally a colonial city of the ancient Greeks. At that time, the ruins of the quarry where the slaves worked, as well as the sewers and water storage tanks built by the later Romans, still remained. They existed as underground ruins in this era near the old market street. Even the ruins of the underground warehouses left behind during the Middle Ages to store food and alcohol still existed here. Although the underground ruins of the old market street and many other places had become tourist attractions of Napoli, some of the more important ruins with magical significance were not open to the public. Instead, they were sealed and hidden by the witches of Napoli. The ruins in this area were mostly concentrated in the Santa Lucia area. It was an area facing the Bay of Napoli, which included the Santa Lucia port and tourist attractions such as the Egg Castle. Under Diana's lead, Noah, Erica, and Liliana entered an old clothing store in this area. They were silently led to the depths of the store by the owner who matched the store very well. This lady boss was also a witch belonging to the Bronze Black Cross. Deep in the store, there was an entrance to the underground ruins. On the bare ground, a four-cornered cave leading to the underground ruins was revealed in front of Noah and the others. The stone stairs extending to the underground could be seen clearly by anyone. They could also vaguely sense the traces of spell power fluctuating around the cave. Needless to say, it was caused by the enchantment around the entrance of the ruins. This is the Temple of Hera, the entrance to the underground ruins where the Pillar of Hera is stored. Diana took the opportunity to explain to Noah when the lady boss went to the entrance to do some kind of work. Originally, the Temple of Hera is a place where no one except the witches can enter. Even Lily has only entered a few times. Usually, the witches belonging to the Bronze Black Cross are guarding this place. There are enchantments around this place that prevent intruders and spell power from leaking out. Please wait for a moment, Your Majesty. You can enter after we remove the enchantment. Originally, this kind of barrier had the ability to distinguish between friend and foe. Anyone approved by Diana would be able to pass through. However, the God Slayer's curse resistance wasn't flexible enough to allow him to choose whether or not he wanted to resist the curse that he came into contact with. Regardless of whether the curse was beneficial or not, once it came into contact with the curse, it would be overbearingly erased. If he didn't remove the barrier first and allowed Noah to approach, the entire barrier would collapse because of Noah's touch. At that time, he would have to rebuild the barrier. If that was the case, it would be better to unlock a portion of the barrier first and let the God Slayer pass through. That way, if they wanted to rebuild the barrier, they would only need to repair the unlocked portion. After the witch, who acted as the lady boss, removed the barrier, Noah, Erica, and Liliana walked down the stone steps at the entrance under Diana's lead. After Noah and the others entered the underground ruins, they saw a long and narrow passageway that looked like an abandoned tunnel. If it was traced back to before the Common Era, this place should have been a quarry, which was why it looked like an abandoned tunnel. However, this wasn't the case for the large number of murals that were engraved everywhere on the walls. They were murals drawn with simple and plain lines. If it was said that they were carved by humans in the Stone Age, some people might believe it. On the murals, there were many snake-like creatures carved on them. Some were large snakes with their long bodies curled up. Some were 9-headed snakes with several heads. Some were snakes with bat-like wings. Some had sharp claws and fangs. Instead of saying that they were snakes, they were more like dragons. But at the end of the day, dragons were still snakes. There were all kinds of snakes carved on the walls. In addition, there were some line drawings of cows, birds, pigs, and lions. As long as someone with a little magic knowledge came here to take a look, they would definitely be able to recognize that these creatures were all symbols of Mother Earth. The period when these murals were carved was probably the era after the Roman Empire's domination. In the past, these underground ruins were the secret underground shrine of the witches who served Mother Earth. Liliana, who was walking beside Noah, whispered to Noah. Since the patriarchal Christianity became the state religion, the witches who used to serve the feminist Mother Earth and possess divine power were regarded as witches and were hunted down. They fled underground, and in order to protect their wisdom, they built this kind of underground shrine for the purpose of conveying messages. These murals on the wall depict the object of the witches' faith, the posture of Mother Earth, right? Erica said softly while admiring the murals here. In the ancient world, the witches who served Mother Earth were the prototypes of modern witches. With the popularization of Christianity, Europe lost its ancient beliefs. It can also be said that they were suppressed and resisted. In this process, the witches, who were supposed to be sacred, were persecuted and became feared and taboo existences. They are witches, right? Liliana nodded with a complicated expression on her face. She must be grieving for what happened to her ancestors. Then, Diana, who was walking in front, suddenly spoke. We're here. Almost at the same time, Noah and the others walked to the end of the stone steps, stepped onto the flat ground, and arrived at the depths of the underground shrine. What appeared before Noah was a vast open space that looked like an altar. The ground was engraved with snakes and dragons like the murals just now. In addition, there were some ancient texts and patterns that symbolized magic. Like a huge magic array, it covered the entire open space. In the center of this open space that looked like a magic array, there was a pitch-black stone pillar. It was a thin column made of black stone that resembled obsidian. The column was about 2 meters tall, and its surface was engraved with lines that looked like coiled snakes. Although it was just a clumsy carving, it had a magical power that could attract the attention of the viewer. On such a column, whether it was Noah, Erica, or Liliana, they could all sense a huge spell gradually condensing. This is the stone pillar of Hera. Diana shook hands and prayed as if she was on a pilgrimage, her expression quite pious. Hundreds of years ago, the witch of Naples, our ancestor, discovered this stone pillar in Greece and painstakingly moved it to this place. Only then can we directly observe the symbol of the god that we once served, as it is now. Hearing this, Liliana also shook hands and prayed like a devout believer. Even Erica, who was not a witch, closed her eyes. Only Noah frowned as he looked at the divine pillar of Hera that was constantly fluctuating with a huge spell. At this moment, an object in Noah's pocket suddenly vibrated violently and released a huge spell that reverberated in the entire space like ripples. At the same time, as if in response, the divine pillar of Hera shook all over, and the huge spell that had gathered on the stone pillar fluctuated like boiling water. What's wrong? Erica, Liliana, and Diana were shocked. Noah quickly took out an item from his pocket. It was a badge that, like the stone pillar of Hera, had a surface that seemed to be made of obsidian and was carved with the head of a woman whose hair was made up of snakes. It was the stone of Gorgon. At this moment, Athena's snake and Hera's snake resonated violently, causing the stone of Gorgon and the divine pillar of Hera to release an extremely huge spell at the same time, which turned into substantial ripples that reverberated in the surrounding space. That's the stone of Gorgon? Diana was indeed an ancient witch. She immediately recognized the true form of the badge in Noah's hand and cried out in surprise. Oh no! Erica and Liliana also understood something and cried out involuntarily. Athena's snake resonated with Hera's snake. If this continues, not only Athena, but also Hera may appear. Noah's eyes narrowed as he clenched the stone of Gorgon in his hand and said without hesitation. Let's retreat first. Diana, find a way to suppress the spell on the divine pillar of Hera. Yes. Diana responded quickly. Noah, Erica, and Liliana tapped the ground with the tips of their feet and retreated rapidly. With a leap, they jumped up the stone stairs and rushed towards the top of the ruins. Chapter 540. Whoosh! In the depths of the old clothing store, at the entrance to the underground ruins, 3 figures rushed out one after another with a gust of wind. They rushed straight into the air, then spun around, stabilized themselves, and landed on the ground. At the entrance of the underground ruins, a ripple of curse power rippled out from inside, gradually becoming more and more intense. In Noah's hand, the Gorgon stone vibrated frequently, and also released ripples of curse power, as if it wanted to resonate with the curse power at the entrance of the ruins and merge together. Even the Gorgon stone itself became extremely hot, almost burning Noah's palm. Seeing this, Noah did not let go of the Gorgon stone, but instead clenched it tightly, and the curse power in his body flowed like water, through his palm, burning and surging like a flame, covering the Gorgon stone inside. Covered by Noah's curse power, the Gorgon stone stagnated, and the curse power on it was slowly suppressed by Noah's curse power, and retracted back into the badge. It was not until then that the Gorgon stone stopped vibrating, and the temperature on it gradually dropped, returning to its initial cold. At the same time, the curse power fluctuating from the underground ruins also slowly retracted and gradually disappeared, as if it had lost its target. Phew! Erica and Liliana breathed a sigh of relief. Even Noah could not help but smile bitterly as he looked at the Gorgon stone in his hand that had calmed down. That Athena really did leave me something very troublesome. Linley muttered to himself. Because of the Gorgon stone, Noah had successively fought with Warban, Luohao, and Doni, and had dealt with Athena countless times. Now, the Gorgon stone could also resonate with the pillar of Hera, and lead to the appearance of Hera. It had to be said that Noah felt more and more that the stone of Gorgon was a hot potato. This is not surprising. Before the arrival of male chauvinism, people in a feminist society worshipped the goddess of earth as their most basic belief, and the symbol of the goddess of earth was the snake. Liliana took a deep breath. It's not strange that Athena and Hera's snakes would resonate with each other. Their mythologies were also altered after the arrival of male chauvinism, stripped of their status, and degenerated into the subordinate gods of Zeus. In other words, we can't let the stone of Gorgon get too close to the pillar of Hera, right? Erica said bluntly. Otherwise, it might really attract Hera's appearance. Noah didn't say anything from the beginning to the end. Instead, he held Athena's snake tightly in his hand. He recalled Hera's snake in the underground ruins and Alice's words. His frown deepened. Did Alice guess wrongly? Isn't Guinevere's purpose the appearance of steel? Guinevere invited Noah to Nabali, saying that the god of disobedience was about to appear in Nabali. However, according to the current situation, even if the god of disobedience did appear, it would only be a mother goddess like Hera. There was no sign of the god of disobedience, of steel, appearing at all. In that case, what was the purpose of Guinevere inviting Noah to Nabali? Or as Alice said, was he planning to use Noah to prove that the steel appearing in Nabali was the last king that Guinevere was looking for? Erica and Liliana naturally understood why Noah had such doubts. Although the two female knights were not present at the time, Noah conveyed Alice's words to Erica and Liliana afterward. Therefore, Erica and Liliana were aware of Alice's guesses. I think that Princess Alice's guess should be correct. Master Guinevere's purpose is still steel, Erica expressed her thoughts. However, there are all kinds of factors that cause the appearance of the god of disobedience. Sometimes it's just a small trigger, and sometimes it may be a summoning phenomenon caused by a god relic like the god's pillar of Hera. Perhaps there are other factors in Nabali that we don't know about that can cause steel to appear that haven't been discovered yet? That's what I think too, Liliana voiced her thoughts. Originally, the steel hero and the serpent goddess have a very close relationship. The phenomenon of the god's pillar of Hera is very likely to be the factor that causes steel to appear. The so-called steel originally referred to the heroes who had slaughtered the dragon and serpent in the myths and had an inseparable relationship with the dragon and serpent. When the Gaia goddesses were belittled, and the winged serpent that represented themselves was even rendered as an evil monster of a dragon, the steel heroes who slaughtered the dragon in the myths could be said to be the symbol of men who had tampered with the myths. The men who had expelled the feminist society had portrayed steel as a hero who represented themselves, and introduced him into the myths to slaughter the dragon and serpent that represented the Gaia goddesses that women believed in. This was a factor that was deliberately added to raise the status of men. Therefore, the relationship between the steel heroes and the Gaia goddesses was just like the relationship between feminism and feminism. It was not an exaggeration to say that they were enemies. Now, the serpent that represented Hera had such a violent reaction. It was not impossible that the god of disobedience that caused the appearance of the god of disobedience was not the Gaia goddesses, but the steel heroes. Noah nodded thoughtfully, holding the Gorgon stone tightly in his hand. After a while, he let out a sigh of relief. No matter what, I still need to be on guard against Guinevere. I'll leave this side to you. I won't get close in case something happens again. Understood. Erica and Liliana nodded at the same time, turned around, and re-entered the underground ruins along the way they came. They were probably going to meet up with Diana to seal the large amount of curse power gathered on the Pillar of Hera. Seeing that Erica and Liliana had re-entered the underground ruins, Noah put the Gorgon stone into his pocket, turned around, and walked out of the old clothing store under the respectful attitude of the lady boss. Walking on the streets of the old market, Noah blended into the crowd, wandering aimlessly while taking out his mobile phone and sending an email to Alice to inform her of the situation here. It didn't take long for Alice's reply to arrive. I also agree with Miss Erica and Miss Liliana. The relationship between steel and serpent is inseparable. Lady Guinevere, who was once the goddess of the Gaia goddesses, also inexplicably became a follower of the last king. So, I think the Pillar of Hera should still be related to steel. After Noah finished reading this email, Alice immediately sent a new email. My body can move freely now. Seeing me dancing in the hall, Ms. E. Leeson's expression really made me very interested. But because I was too proud, Ms. Elisen still found out about my plan to go out. She said that it was not easy for my body to get better, so I must not mess around outside. Then, she set up a barrier to prevent me from going out. This time, I must succeed in escaping. Please be sure to wait for me. Noah almost stumbled and fell to the ground, unable to get up. This girl indeed hid a personality of black-bellied and wanted to see the world in chaos under her noble temperament. With Alice's brain, which was known as the wisest in Europe, Noah had enough reason to believe that it was impossible for Alice not to realize that once she was proud of her freedom of movement, she would definitely be grounded by Elisen. Therefore, it was very likely that Alice deliberately let Elisen find out that her body was getting better, then deliberately let Elisen be on guard against her, immersing herself in the game of escape and unable to extricate herself. To Alice, as long as it was not like the last time when Noah, Luohao, Warban, and Tony were in a scuffle, causing the entire Italy to be in turmoil, it was very likely that she would deliberately watch the show from the sidelines, right? At that moment, Noah put away the phone in his hand in annoyance. However, at a certain moment, a strange feeling made Noah stop in his tracks. Frowning deeply, he immediately turned his head and looked at the top of a building at the side. Is it really here? Saying such a sentence, the silver-haired petite goddess stood under the moonlight, a pair of dark snake eyes emitting a deathly cold luster, making one's heart palpitate. Chapter 541. In the silent night, the comfortable night breeze blew by slowly, blowing away the dark clouds that covered the sky. Under the backdrop of the shining stars in the midsummer night sky, the moon that emitted soft silver light appeared in people's vision. It was extremely beautiful. However, in this beautiful night, Noah's body and limbs were gradually filled with strength. Noah was no stranger to this state. After all, in the 3 months since he became the God-Slayer, Noah had experienced this feeling several times. When the king of the God-Slayer was close to the god, his body would naturally undergo this change. However, before this change came, Noah had already noticed the existence of the petite girl. It's been a long time, Noah Dariah. The ancient queen of the divine realm, who had shoulder-length silver hair and a petite body, stood at the top of the building. With the moon and the starry sky as the background, she gazed at Noah with a pair of pitch-black pupils that seemed to condense the entire night into one. She revealed a disdainful smile and looked down at Noah with a pair of disdainful eyes. How many times has it been since we met in the dark night that I control? I'm sorry, I didn't count that kind of thing, and I hope it's not too many. Noah looked up at Athena standing at the top of the building, and even though his body and mind were in a state of battle because of the goddess in front of him, his eyes were quite relaxed. Why are you here, should I ask this question? If you ask, then I may have to reevaluate you. Athena's tone was very flat, but the content was quite arrogant. I think that perhaps it's fate that brought us together in such a place. Fate? Noah said mockingly. Didn't you come to find me on purpose? It was during the day that the stone of Gorgon resonated with the divine pillar of Hera and released an abnormal fluctuation of spell power. And the stone of Gorgon was the seal of Athena's snake, so how could Athena not notice its change? So, rather than saying that it was fate, Noah was more willing to believe that Athena was aware of the change in the stone of Gorgon, and then followed the stone of Gorgon and came to Nabali. In fact, this was indeed the case. My snake seems to have resonated with the snake of the goddess of the same origin. Sure enough, Athena, who controlled wisdom, had already seen through everything, and her beautiful and awe-inspiring face was full of insightful calmness. This has boosted my fighting spirit a little. Fighting spirit? Promise raised her eyebrows. Do you still want to fight with the goddess of the same origin? That may be a choice. Although the snake in your body has not been retrieved, the other party is in the same state, and has not even appeared on this ground. That would be a little boring. Athena's pair of dark eyes had a hint of heat. Compared to a battle with a goddess of the same origin, this concubine would actually rather have a battle to the death with you, who has extraordinary karma with this concubine. Only then can this battle intend in this concubine's heart be appeased after seeing you. This sentence sounded like a young girl who yearned for Noah day and night, pouring out her feelings to Noah. Just from the content alone, it really made one think of a romantic scene. Not to mention, these words came from the mouth of the goddess, Athena. I believe that all the mortals on the ground will go crazy, right? Unfortunately, although the content of Athena's words was suggestive, it was definitely not a courtship. If that was the case, then he would definitely be defeated in the hands of this goddess. After all, even if the snake had not been retrieved, Athena was still the god of darkness in charge of the underworld. She herself controlled the power directly linked to death, and even a breath could form a curse that would cause people to die without a burial place. Therefore, Noah did not answer Athena's words, but looked at the other party's pair of dark eyes. Although he did not use the power of the curse, his body was filled with a terrifying aura that instantly enveloped Athena. Not sure if it was because of Athena's presence, the surrounding crowd had disappeared without a trace, leaving not a single person around. In this way, Noah could also release his aura unscrupulously, and even if Athena wanted to fight, Noah would accompany her to the end. Noah had never forgotten. He did not forget how many obstacles Athena had set for him 3 months ago in order to obtain the Gorgon stone from him. It was because of Athena's calculations that Noah was targeted by Warban, Luohao, and even Tony. So, if Athena wanted to fight, this time, Noah would definitely not show mercy and would definitely teach Athena a lesson. Perhaps feeling the fighting spirit and determination from Noah's amazing aura, a smile appeared on Athena's cold face. That smile represented pleasure. What an amazing aura. Athena seemed to want to slowly taste Noah's amazing aura, and she licked the corner of her mouth intoxicatedly. At first, I thought that since you are a human on the ground, even if you are our enemy, the king who killed the gods, you would not be able to compete with the gods in terms of spirit. However, your spirit is not weaker than the gods. You also have an intoxicating fighting spirit and determination. You are simply a natural-born warrior. No, you are a natural-born god of war. You are truly worthy of being my destined person. With that said, Athena walked down from the top of the building step by step as if she was stepping on flat ground, or walking down an invisible staircase. Unfortunately, this time, I am not ready to fight you. At least, to deal with you, who is my destined enemy, before I take back my identity as the Queen of the Trinity, I will not be so rude as to start a war with you. Noah gazed at Athena, who was slowly approaching him, and his gaze gradually turned thought-provoking. In other words, you didn't come here to treat the Gaia goddess, who shares the same roots as you, as your opponent, nor did you want to treat me as your opponent. However, you have a fighting spirit in your heart. So, who do you plan to vent your fighting spirit on? Oh. Have you seen through it? Athena's footsteps paused imperceptibly, and then she continued walking until she was in front of Noah. She floated in the air at the same height as Noah, and her line of sight overlapped with Noah's line of sight. As the goddess of wisdom, I will give you enough praise for your wisdom, Noah Doria. After saying that, Athena reached out her delicate hand and gently stroked Noah's cheek. It was as if she was taking pity on an extremely precious item. That's right. What surges forth in this concubine's heart is not only the desire for battle, but also the hatred that is engraved in my heart. This is a hatred that this concubine will never forget. It is a feeling that only appears when facing those, steel, who treat this concubine, the mother goddess of the earth, as a target for slaughter. Although it is still very faint, but this concubine's wisdom tells this concubine that very soon, steel will appear on this land. Steel will soon appear on this land. As the mortal enemy of steel, and the goddess of wisdom, Athena, said so, there was no need to doubt the truth of this sentence. So that's how it is. You came here to bury steel? Noah did not avoid Athena's caressing action, as if they had become intimate lovers, and smiled indifferently. But, Athena, I'm sorry to tell you, if your target is steel, then your enemy may not only be steel. I know. Athena suddenly smiled, and a pair of snake eyes shone. That man, the servant of the man known as the last king, also came here, right? Although I don't know if she is the servant of the so-called last king, but a god ancestor called Ganivia did invite me here. Noah shrugged. Then, what are you going to do? You already have the answer in your heart, so why are you still asking me? Athena reluctantly caressed Noah's cheek for the last time, and then floated down from the air and landed on the ground. She turned around and left Noah with her back view. You and my enemy are on the same side this time. Hearing this, Noah smiled. Chapter 542. When Athena walked into Diana's second-hand bookstore under Noah's lead and came to the second floor that looked like both a living room and a library, Erica and Liliana, who were discussing something around the desk, froze on the spot, unable to react. Pa! A thick book in Liliana's hand fell to the ground with a loud thud. Cough! Erica, who was holding a teacup in her hand and had just taken a sip, almost spat out the tea in her mouth. Although she tried her best to swallow it, she also choked herself, and her pretty face turned red. Crash! Diana, who just came out of the inner room with a pile of papers in her arms, froze on the spot without any suspense. The pile of papers in her arms all fell to the ground, and she did not react at all. She was completely stupefied. Although she did not know Athena's identity as clearly as Erica and Liliana, as an excellent witch, it was easy for Diana to recognize the god of disobedience. A god of disobedience broke into her home? That was enough to stupefy Diana. Therefore, the scene suddenly became eerily silent. Meanwhile, Noah acted as if he didn't see Erica, Liliana, and Diana's reactions. He turned a blind eye to them and continued to lead Athena inside with a calm expression. Under Noah's lead, Athena also walked in silently like a walking doll. There was not a trace of vitality on her body and face, only an astonishing aura of death, which awakened Erica, Liliana, and Diana. At that moment, Erica and Liliana jumped back a distance as if it was a conditioned reflex. They also summoned Lion King's Heart and Silver Master Craftsman and aimed at Athena. Diana's reaction was even more exaggerated. She chose to escape without hesitation. She slipped into the inner room that she had just come out of and only stuck her head out from the crack of the door. This reaction was understandable. When a god of disobedience suddenly broke into the base, everyone would subconsciously be on guard. It was not surprising at all. It was a pity that Athena completely ignored Erica, Liliana, and Diana's reactions. She didn't even look at the three young ladies. Of course. Descending as the god of disobedience, Athena was like the other gods. Although she didn't view humans as livestock, she couldn't hold any human in her eyes. After all, humans were too weak and powerless for gods. Noah was the only one who could enter Athena's sight. Is this your camp? Ignoring Erica's, Liliana's, and the others' overreaction, Athena glanced around and spoke in a disinterested manner. A camp built with a god as your opponent, even if it's temporary, lacks the smell of war that a battlefield should have. As a female war god who controls war, I am unable to approve of this camp of yours. That's great, Noah retorted without holding back. If the enemy can predict everything, how can we fight a war? Did you choose this camp based on this consideration? Athena's disinterested tone suddenly disappeared and was replaced by a tone of praise. You're right. If everything is predicted by the enemy, then there's no way to win the battle. Although this camp lacks a sense of tension, it's not a bad choice to let the enemy catch them off guard. It's my fault for not thinking it through. After that, Athena's body floated up, and her toes left the ground. Like a ghost, she drifted into the room next door. In that case, let me investigate this camp of yours that is beyond the enemy's expectations. After saying that, Athena disappeared into the room next door. Upon seeing this, Noah curled his lips and ignored Erica, Liliana, and Diana. He sat on the only seat beside the desk, picked up a book, and flipped through it casually. Only then did Erica, Liliana, and Diana rush out and gather in front of Noah. What's going on here? Liliana deliberately lowered her voice as if she didn't want Athena to hear her, but because of this, her expression turned sinister. Why is the goddess here? You're asking the wrong question, Lily. Lily. Erica also deliberately lowered her voice and corrected Liliana. What you should be asking is why Athena followed him here. Athena? Diana was startled. You mean Athena? Could it be that Athena? Looking at the shocked expressions of the three girls in front of him, Noah rolled his eyes even though he had expected it. It's simple. Athena and I have decided to work together. Join forces? Erica, Liliana, and Diana were all stunned. That's right, Noah explained concisely. From now on, until the appearance of the Steel Hero is destroyed, Athena will temporarily be our ally. Just treat Athena as a guest star that I've invited. That better be the case. Liliana could not help but raise her voice. By the way, isn't the goddess our enemy? Should we say, so that's how it is? Erica said with a fake smile. Do you think such an explanation would make us say such a thing? An alliance formed by the god Slayer and the god of disobedience? Diana was even more confused. Is that even possible? The god Slayer was born by killing the god of disobedience. It was also the demon king that was specifically used to deal with the gods. The god of disobedience was the common enemy of the humans who appeared on the ground. She also saw the god Slayer who killed her own race as an enemy. An alliance between these two existences? How was that any different from the absurdity of a weasel and a chicken eating peacefully at the same table? Besides, not only would the god of disobedience see the god Slayer as an enemy who killed their own race, but even the god Slayer would see the god of disobedience as a target that must be killed. That was the instinct of the god Slayer. In this way, it was hard to imagine that the god Slayer and the god of disobedience would form an alliance and fight against the enemy together. However, Noah and Athena managed to accomplish something that no one could have imagined. This was because Noah had never treated Athena as a target that he had to kill. As long as Athena didn't cause trouble for him or the humans, Noah wouldn't go looking for Athena to kill each other for no reason. Athena did have the idea of fighting Noah, but it didn't seem to be the time for now. For Athena, Noah was one of her favorite dishes, and it was best to leave it for the end. Therefore, before the final battle, Athena would not be hostile to Noah for no reason. Although Athena's most important snake was in Noah's hands, which was enough reason for Athena to see Noah as an enemy. Well, whether you find it unbelievable or not, this is the truth. Noah stretched out his finger and flicked Erica's and Liliana's foreheads. Calm down, the reason is actually very easy to guess. It's just that you lack calmness. After Noah said this, Erica and Liliana did indeed calm down. Then, the smart Erica was the first to understand. So that's how it is. Because the hero of steel is likely to appear in Nabali, the snake goddess' desire for revenge has been provoked? For Athena, steel is much more annoying than me. Noah said lightly. And our enemies are not just steel, so it's not that hard for us to join forces, right? But Athena's snake is still in our hands, isn't it? Liliana said worriedly. Is it possible that the Lord chose to join forces with us temporarily just to get the stone of Gorgon? Who knows? Noah closed the book in his hand and turned his gaze in the direction of Athena's room, the corners of his mouth slowly raised. I don't want to fight with the goddess of wisdom. It's better to pull her over, isn't it? Chapter 543. Later, after Erica, Liliana, and Diana's reports, Noah learned that although the resonance between the Gorgon stone and the Pillar of Hera had been forcibly interrupted, the speed at which the Pillar of Hera gathered the curse power had increased exponentially. Originally, the curse power gathered by the Pillar of Hera had far exceeded the level that humans should have. After the resonance with the Gorgon stone, the curse power gathered on the Pillar of Hera had greatly increased, and it was almost at the level of the god Slayer and the god of disobedience. At this rate, once he gathered enough curse power to rival the god Slayer and the god of disobedience, then the god Pillar of Hera would definitely undergo some kind of change. Erica, Liliana, and Diana speculated that it would most likely cause the real Hera to appear on the ground. Therefore, the problem of the Pillar of Hera had reached the point where it had to be solved. At the current speed of the curse power gathering, in 3 days at the latest, the Pillar of Hera would gather enough curse power to rival the god Slayer and the god of disobedience. At that time, the ideal result would be to usher in the descent of the god of disobedience. If possible, Erica, Liliana, and Diana all hoped that Noah could solve this problem, and it would be best if he could avoid the appearance of the god of disobedience. Noah had experienced this kind of thing many times in the past 3 months, so he naturally had no objections. In the end, the group decided to go to Hera's underground temple again tomorrow morning to solve the problem brought about by the Pillar of Hera. Of course, Noah did not hide this matter from Athena, and directly confirmed the plan in front of Athena. After Athena showed a slightly meaningful expression, she turned and left. In this way, the plan for tomorrow was decided, and Erica, Liliana, and Diana all went down to prepare. Taking advantage of this time, Noah left Diana's old bookstore and went to a rather famous bathhouse in the old market street. The bathhouse in Diana's bookstore had been occupied by Erica and Liliana. Noah didn't want to compete with the girls for the bathhouse, and he had nothing to do, so he simply came here to take a bath at Diana's suggestion. However, Italy didn't seem to be as enthusiastic about taking a bath together as some island countries, and it was almost late at night now. So, when Noah entered the bathhouse, there was no one here except for the owner who was guarding the door. Splash, amidst the sound of water, Noah lay down in the warm bath. He leaned against the wall of the bath and looked out through the window at the side. He looked at the resplendent starry sky, and for a moment, he felt much more relaxed. The night view of Napoli was famous all over the world. Looking at the beautiful night sky, even Noah couldn't help but feel a burst of pleasure, let alone others. Of course, this didn't mean that Noah didn't have any worries. How should I solve the matter of the Pillar of Hera? To solve the problem caused by the Pillar of Hera, Noah had to consider one thing that could not be ignored. That was the matter of the Stone of Gorgon. If he wanted to solve the problem of the Pillar of Hera, Noah had to get close to the Pillar of Hera. However, the Stone of Gorgon on Noah must not be brought over. Otherwise, if the snakes of the two goddess of earth once again resonated and caused unnecessary changes, what should he do? Therefore, this problem must be solved first. This was not something that could be solved by just leaving it in a random place. Now, Athena was beside Noah, and if the Stone of Gorgon was not carried by Noah himself, then Athena would not mind taking it away. Even if Athena did not take the Stone of Gorgon, Noah could not just find a place to put it. In today's resonance, it was not only the Pillar of Hera that reacted, but the Stone of Gorgon also reacted abnormally. In this way, if he just found a place to put it, who knows if the Stone of Gorgon would suddenly change. Noah clearly remembered that when he was in the underground ruins, the Stone of Gorgon had turned into a dragon. If the Stone of Gorgon suddenly turned into a dragon this time and caused trouble in the old market, then it would be very troublesome. He had to think carefully about how to solve this problem. Sigh. Thinking of this, Noah could not help but sigh. Might as well just return the Stone of Gorgon to Athena. As soon as he said this, the familiar flat voice echoed and drilled into Noah's ears. If you want to return this concubine's snake to this concubine won't have any objections. Although that would make things a little boring. The voice was as clear as a drop of water dripping into a lake, but without any emotion. In this world, there should not be a second one. Noah immediately shivered and turned his head, looking in the direction of the voice. Just next to the bathtub, a petite but extremely beautiful girl stood there, facing the direction of the window, as if she was also looking at the night sky. It was only when Noah looked over that she turned her head and met Noah's eyes. You didn't even notice when I was so close to you. This is something that has never happened before. As my nemesis, I am sincerely dissatisfied with this, Noah Doria. It was just as Athena had said. Although there was no expression on her face, Athena's pair of dark snake eyes faintly showed some dissatisfaction. In Athena's view, Noah must be a very ideal opponent, right? Therefore, when Noah's performance was too good, Athena would laugh out loud in delight. In this way, when Noah's performance dissatisfied Athena, of course, Athena would also feel unhappy. But it's also true. Noah was indeed negligent for not noticing Athena's arrival. Noah himself has an extremely foul-sensing ability. And when the god Slayer's physique encounters the god of disobedience, his body will be filled with power, which is an obvious hint. Under such favorable conditions, Noah still didn't notice Athena's approach. No wonder Athena was dissatisfied. But there was a reason for that. If you approached with hostility, malice, or killing intent, I would have noticed you as soon as you approached this bathtub. Noah leaned against the wall of the bathtub, his expression relaxed. There was not a trace of nervousness at all. And since you can silently approach me to this extent, it proves that you didn't come here with any ulterior motives, right? Even so, you and I are still mortal enemies. This is an unchangeable fact. Athena said lightly. Even if you and I are now in an alliance, not guarding against an enemy like me is not a quality that a qualified warrior should have. Oh. Noah suddenly raised his eyebrows. In other words, as your enemy, you have been guarding against me all this time? Oh. Athena pursed her lips and smiled. Although it was just a faint smile, the smile on her delicate face added a lot of charm to the famous goddess of mythology. Who knows? After saying this, Athena turned around and looked at Noah without blinking. Under Athena's pure gaze, Noah began to feel uncomfortable. Of course. Noah was now completely naked. Being stared at by the opposite sex, even if the other party looked like a 12 or 13-year-old girl, Noah still felt very uncomfortable. However, before Noah could object, the next moment, what happened in front of Noah made Noah completely stunned. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets. All of a sudden, Athena reached out her hand and stripped off her clothes one by one in front of Noah. Noah, who didn't expect Athena to suddenly do such a thing, was stunned on the spot. His mind inevitably went blank for a while, and it took him a while to react. However, by the time he reacted, the things that should have been avoided were already too late. Thus, in the next moment, when the last piece of clothing slipped from Athena's body and fell on the ground outside the bathtub, Noah was imprinted in his eyes. Chapter 544. People would often compare a pearl to a young girl's skin. People would often praise a young girl's skin as white as a pearl and very lustrous. Then, what does a pearl-like white skin look like? If it was the current Noah, he would definitely be able to answer this question properly. Because a delicate body with such luster was now presented in front of Noah without any concealment, giving Noah the best reference. Although the delicate body was young, the curves from the waist to the buttocks were unexpectedly attractive. Although the front of the delicate body didn't rise and fall much, it was already quite eye-catching. Needless to say, the skin of the delicate body was like a pearl in the truest sense, and it even reflected the light, making it exceptionally beautiful. The delicate body had already reached an incredible degree. If there was really something in this world that could be described as a heavenly work, then there would definitely be a place for it. And when such a delicate body was presented in front of a man without a trace of concealment, what would that man's mood be like? Noah didn't know how others would feel, but Noah himself completely felt that his mind was completely blank for a moment, as if his thoughts were suddenly blocked somewhere, and he couldn't turn around anymore. This situation was finally broken when Athena calmly put her foot into the bath that Noah was soaking in. Splash! With another splash, Athena entered the bathtub and soaked herself in the water. And it was not far away from Noah. Even with the cover of the steam, Athena's delicate body was still faintly visible in Noah's eyes, which made Noah completely lose his calm. What are you doing? Are you surprised? Athena looked up, her eyes were as calm as usual. Speaking of which, humans seem to have some scruples about the intimate contact between men and women, but in some places, there is also the saying of honesty. I don't think you don't even know about this. I know, but whether you know or not has nothing to do with the current situation. Noah's mouth twitched. The problem is, even if you want to be honest with me, you still need a reason. Why do you want to be honest with me? Strictly speaking, I don't have a reason to be honest with you. I just want to experience your feelings. Athena tilted her head and said. As the goddess of wisdom, I know that when humans are cleansing themselves, a popular saying, their vigilance is usually lower than usual. There might not even be a trace of vigilance. Just now, you were so careless that you didn't even notice me approaching you. That's one of the reasons, right? Hearing Athena's words, Noah was speechless. To be precise, Athena was right. No one would be on guard when taking a bath, right? Noah was indeed too comfortable. In addition, the night view of Nabali was really good. Under the combination of the two, and because Athena didn't approach with malice, hostility, or killing intent, Noah didn't notice Athena's approach. There was nothing he could do about it, right? But Athena herself seemed to be very dissatisfied with Noah's performance. She was so dissatisfied that she didn't even hesitate to experience it herself. To be able to make the goddess Athena so concerned, should it be Noah's honor? From this, it could also be seen how satisfied Athena was with Noah's performance in the past. She was so satisfied that a trace of carelessness this time made Athena so dissatisfied to this extent. It seems that under the influence of the god of disobedience, Athena, who was once the queen of the divine realm, seemed to occupy more of the goddess of war's divinity. That's why she was so emotionally affected by Noah, this so-called fated opponent. Understanding this, Noah was speechless. Forget it, it's not like I don't have this kind of experience anyway. In the world of the Dark Bullet, Noah had the experience of bathing with the children of the cursed child he adopted many times. In the world of Absolute Dual Blades, he also saw Julie and Lilith's bodies many times. He even had the most intimate contact with Mira and Lysanna, so he didn't panic because of being honest with Athena. Of course, when he thought of the famous goddess Athena soaking in the same bath as him, Noah still felt a little dizzy. Noah could only suppress the impetuosity in his heart and smiled bitterly. Then, after experiencing it personally, as the goddess of wisdom, do you understand anything? Understand what? Athena glanced at Noah and said such a sentence. Sure enough, although I can understand, I still can't understand why you humans feel comfortable soaking in such hot water and even relax to the point of losing your vigilance. This also proved that Athena was indeed a goddess and not a human. Even if her appearance was beautiful and her body was seductive, Athena was still Athena. There was a fundamental difference between the values of a goddess and a human. Thinking of this, Noah realized that being able to talk to Athena, the god of disobedience, was indeed quite an incredible thing. Perhaps, this was the karma that Athena talked about? Because of unknown karma, Noah could have such an incredible experience and way of getting along with Athena, who was a goddess. It was really strange. It was just that Athena was not like a human and would feel satisfied because of this. As the former queen of the divine realm, and also as a goddess, there was only one way to satisfy Athena. Battle. Give Athena a battle that could soothe the arrogance in her heart caused by Bodhisattva. In this way, the high and mighty queen of the divine realm, the famous goddess of wisdom in Greek mythology, would be truly satisfied. Noah had to fight with Athena sooner or later, so he had to be mentally prepared. This was not only for Noah himself, but also for Athena. Athena didn't know if it was because she felt Noah's determination, but she looked straight into Noah's eyes with an intoxicating smile on her face. You showed a good look just now, Noah Doria. Is that so? Noah smiled indifferently. Are you going to say that it's the look of a warrior? No, although there is a warrior part in it, it's more about responsibility. Athena seemed to be attracted by Noah's look just now. She slowly approached Noah until she was in front of Noah. She looked up at Noah with sparkling eyes. That's right, that's the look of a real man. Noah suddenly became silent and sighed. I just realized that you really need me to be the one to defeat you. Hearing this, Athena revealed a joyful expression. Do you feel the same as me? Sure enough, you and I are fated enemies. In other words, Athena had the same feeling as Noah. She felt that only she could defeat Noah. That's why she regarded Noah as her so-called fated enemy. I don't know if I'm your fated enemy. Noah fearlessly met Athena's gaze. It's just that, if you have to choose one person to defeat you, that person must be me. I just realized this. That's enough. Athena's joyful expression slowly turned into a satisfied look. With a splash, she stood up from the water, revealing her naked body in front of Noah. This concubine will taste the karma between us bit by bit. Noah Dole, before one of us disappears from this world, this concubine will not allow you to die a miserable death at the hands of others. We're the same. Noah narrowed his eyes. There was no blasphemy in his eyes toward Athena's naked body, and he responded in a dignified manner. Before I defeat you, don't die in the hands of other gods' slayers, Athena. Athena took a deep look at Noah and gave him a faint smile. Then, she turned around and disappeared into the pool with a surge of darkness. At the same time, the clothes that Athena dropped on the edge of the bath also disappeared. Seeing this, Noah smiled helplessly. She's really a goddess who appears and disappears like a ghost. Chapter 545. After coming out of the bathhouse, Noah couldn't find Athena. This goddess didn't seem to plan to act with Noah, at least not when Noah was living a normal life with Noah. Therefore, even if Noah returned to Diana's old bookstore, he still couldn't sense Athena's aura. However, Noah wasn't worried. No matter what, she was still the famous goddess of wisdom. Noah didn't think that Athena would secretly gloat when things were developing in a bad direction when forming an alliance with him. That didn't match the goddess aesthetics at all. So, Athena would definitely appear at the most critical moment, right? Noah was very confident about this. Perhaps, this was also because of the fate that Athena mentioned. However, Noah didn't expect that accidents would always happen when people didn't expect them. Even if there were no problems with Athena, it didn't mean that there wouldn't be problems elsewhere. Such an accident and problem had already happened before Noah returned to the old bookstore. When Noah returned to the second floor of the old bookstore, he thought that Erica, Liliana, and Diana would be busy in the underground ruins of the Temple of Hera. Who would have thought that when he returned, Erica and Liliana were sitting at the desk in silence with solemn expressions? Seeing this, Noah knew that something had happened. "You're back." Sure enough, as soon as she saw Noah coming up from downstairs, Erica handed him a piece of paper. "Then, take a look at this." Hearing this, Noah went forward without saying a word, took the paper from Erica's hand, and confirmed the content on it. There was a line of small words written in Italian on the paper. "I'm very interested in the god relic that the witches of Nabli worked so hard to transport here hundreds of years ago. Therefore, I'm here to express my intention to borrow it in a simple way. I'll return it in a few days, but the date is uncertain. Please understand, Alexander Gascoigne." Seeing the signature at the end of the paper in his hand, Noah understood immediately. Alexander Gascoigne. Those who were familiar with this name also knew that this person had another famous name. Black Prince Yerek. In other words, the paper in Noah's hand was left behind by Yerek, who was also a god slayer. From the contents, Noah could only deduce one conclusion. The divine pillar of Hera was taken away by Yerek? That's it. Liliana sighed. Who would have thought that the Black Prince would commit such a thieving act? "Lily, that's not right," Erica corrected her. "The Black Prince has done similar things several times, right?" "That seems to be the case." Liliana smiled bitterly. "The Black Prince has forcibly borrowed spirit treasures and god relics from magic societies all over Europe several times with the excuse of, 'I'm a little interested and I want to investigate.' That's not all. Whenever the Black Prince has his eyes on something, if it's heavily guarded, he'll send out a notice and steal it. If there's no stage for him to show off, he'll just leave an IOU and take it away. If he finds something particularly important, he won't even return it. He'll display it in his subordinate association, the Wangli factory, and keep it." Erica shrugged. After all, the Black Prince is a figure who calls himself an explorer and an adventurer. As a god slayer, he doesn't only know how to fight gods. He'll also challenge mysteries and dangerous things as the meaning of life. It's a headache. Hearing Erica and Liliana's complaints, Noah sighed. Could it be that the Black Bronze Cross and the Black Bronze Cross have also been stolen by the Black Prince? As long as it's a famous magic association in Europe, there's basically no one that hasn't been patronized by that lord. Even some not-so-famous magic associations that have hidden good stuff have been patronized by the Black Prince. Erica complained, which was rare. After all, it's the most powerful monster bandit in history. It can't be helped. In terms of combat strength, Yerek was not particularly outstanding among the 7 current god slayers. At least, he was not as outstanding as Luo Hao and Warban. However, if the field of victory was limited to stealing, then it would be Black Prince Yerek's complete victory. The Black Prince has the authority of lightning speed. He also has another authority that allows him to create a maze to trap his opponents. At the same time, he also knows magic and is good at using tactics. Liliana recalled Yerek's deeds. Because of these factors, it's not an exaggeration to say that the Black Prince is the most powerful monster bandit in history. The most important thing is that if he has something he wants, the King of God Slayers will not care about the means at all, even if it's stealing. Erica finished these words in one breath and spread her hands helplessly. Now that the Black Prince has stolen the divine pillar of Hera, what should we do? This sentence made Liliana speechless. Noah repeatedly checked the contents of the paper in his hand, and Alice's words automatically came to his mind. The Black Prince Yerek has a good relationship with Lord Guinevere, and he is also very interested in the last king that Lord Guinevere has been looking for. If he knows what Lord Guinevere is doing now, he will definitely go there, right? As a matter of fact, Yerek had indeed come and stolen the divine pillar of Hera, which Guinevere was concerned about, which was likely related to the hero of steel that was about to appear in Nabali. Presumably, he had done such a thing because of Guinevere. So, what should Noah do now? Although he is a rare genius among the god slayers, Alice also said that the man has the same problem as the god slayers. Once he has something he wants to do, he will not care about his surroundings. He is also a demon king. Noah crushed the paper in his hand. If he stole the divine pillar of Hera because of Guinevere and steel, then he will definitely not solve the curse power gathered on the divine pillar of Hera. It is more likely that he will wait until the divine pillar of Hera has gathered enough curse power and witness the changes of the divine pillar of Hera with his own eyes. We have the same idea. Erica nodded. The Black Prince Yerek will definitely not solve the problem on the divine pillar of Hera. Now, Diana has already gone out to contact her subordinates in Nabali to find the whereabouts of the divine pillar of Hera, Liliana quickly said. There is now a huge amount of curse power gathered on the divine pillar of Hera. Even the Black Prince Yerek can't block it all. It is only a matter of time before he finds the location of the divine pillar of Hera. The key is whether this sooner or later is later or early. Noah shook his head. I just hope that Diana can find the whereabouts of the divine pillar of Hera before it gathers enough curse power. Although he said that, Noah's eyes flashed with a frightening light. What? Erica, who noticed this, smiled sweetly. Are you provoked by the Black Prince Yerek? I don't have that much free time to compete with that kind of guy with a twisted personality. Noah glanced at Erica and said this. It's just that stealing from under my nose and leaving this kind of paper made me want to teach him a lesson. Now, the Black Prince Yerek had done the same thing as Warban. If Yerek really wanted the divine pillar of Hera, he would have come to negotiate with Noah honestly. Perhaps, Noah would have pushed this trouble to Yerek. However, just like how Warban had directly kidnapped Erica and Liliana, Yerek had also directly stolen the divine pillar of Hera. He had no intention of talking to Noah at all and did as he pleased. So, did Noah still need to think about what he should do? The only thing he could do was to teach the other party a lesson. That's why I said you're not as calm as you think you are. You're too impulsive. Liliana's head seemed to hurt even more. No, we have to let Diana disperse the residents of Nabali in time. The Black Prince Yerek, the god Zugnivia, the hero of steel, the snake goddess. Erica concluded with this sentence. The battle royale 3 months ago. Perhaps it will happen again in Italy. That's hard to say. Chapter 546. The next day, just as the sun rose and the sky became bright, Noah woke up. After washing up, Noah walked out of his room and wandered around the library-like living room on the second floor of Diana's second-hand bookstore. The books on the first floor of Diana's second-hand bookstore were extremely ordinary, but there were several bookshelves on the second floor, and almost all of them were books related to gods. Noah, who had nothing to do, stayed in the room and flipped through the books casually, supplementing the knowledge of various mythological systems that he lacked. His life was quite fulfilling. Liliana woke up earlier than Noah, and even dragged Erica out of bed. Erica, who was used to lazing in bed, reluctantly brought her along to meet up with Diana and continue to search for the whereabouts of the divine pillar of Hera. Noah, who had nothing to do, had offered to help last night. But both Erica and Liliana felt that if they needed the king to do something like searching for something, they would really be useless. Therefore, under the objections of Erica and Liliana, Noah could only compromise and leave the task of searching for the divine pillar of Hera to Erica and Liliana, while he read the books in Diana's shop to enrich his knowledge. Perhaps it could be used as a preparation for the sword in the upcoming battle. Erica and Liliana must be thinking the same, right? They felt that instead of wasting Noah's talents to search for the divine pillar of Hera, it would be better for him to supplement his knowledge of various mythological systems and prepare for the sword that the warrior transformed into. That way, it would be the greatest help for the upcoming battle. Noah, who had no objections, let Erica and Liliana do what they wanted, while he stayed alone in the second-hand bookstore, flipping through all kinds of knowledge related to gods. However, there was a lot of knowledge related to gods. Since ancient times, the number of various mythological systems was innumerable, not to mention the knowledge of the various gods under each mythological system. Even though Noah had an extraordinary memory and comprehension ability, he dared not say that he had learned all the knowledge of the mythological system in 3 months. Even Erica and Liliana, the two prodigies who had been learning the knowledge of gods since they were young, dared not say so. So now, Noah basically only remembered the knowledge of the gods in those famous mythological systems. Even so, Noah's mind was filled with a lot of divine knowledge, including the most famous mythological systems such as Greek, Roman, Norse, and Celtic mythology. As for the mythological systems outside Europe, he only roughly remembered a few of the more famous ones. If one wanted to learn all the knowledge of this world's mythological system, even Noah would have to spend a few years, right? And Noah didn't have that much time to learn all the mythological systems in the world, so he could only learn the more famous ones first. In this way, Noah was immersed in the world of books. He read from morning to afternoon, and it was almost evening. It wasn't until the sky began to slowly turn red that Erica and Liliana came back, bringing good news to Noah. We found the stone pillar of Hera. In the corner of the east coast of the port of Naples, a volcano was located here. Mount Vesuvius. It was an active volcano known as the most dangerous volcano in Europe and one of the most famous volcanoes in the world. Now, Noah was at the bottom of this volcano. He looked up at the magnificent volcano, frowned, and looked at Erica and Liliana. The stone pillar of Hera is on this volcano? This sentence was basically nonsense. Because when he came to the bottom of Mount Vesuvius, Noah could clearly feel the extraordinary curse power on the mountain. The feeling of this curse power was almost exactly the same as the curse power gathered on the stone pillar of Hera. Therefore, Noah was sure that the stone pillar of Hera was on this volcano. However, Noah still said this sentence that was purely nonsense. There was no other reason than that the volcano in front of him was too strange. At the top of the volcano, a thick layer of dark clouds shrouded it. Bolts of lightning flashed from the clouds from time to time, as if they could fall on the volcano at any time. It looked very dangerous. And around the volcano, there was a layer of extremely thick fog that shrouded the entire volcano. One could only vaguely see the surface of the volcano that had turned very red due to the excessive iron content, but one couldn't see the exact situation inside. How could a volcano have such a strange appearance? It was precisely because of this that Noah had such a big question. Question 1. When did Mount Vesuvius become like this? Question 2. since the volcano has become like this, how did the stone pillar of Hera appear inside? No matter who it was, if they saw the volcano in front of them, they would definitely have the same question as Noah. That's probably the masterpiece of the Black Prince Yerek, right? Erica pointed at Mount Vesuvius. The reason why Mount Vesuvius became like this should be because of that Lord's authority that turned it into a maze. A maze? Noah's brows furrowed deeper and deeper, and he looked at Mount Vesuvius that was surrounded by fog and covered by thunder clouds. Could it be that this is the legendary Great Maze? The Black Prince Yerek was not only the user of seraphic speed, but also the creator of the maze. Noah had heard about this before. It was said that Yerek had once killed the god of earth and maze, Minos. From this god, Yerek had usurped the authority of the Great Maze, which was called by the Great Maze, by the Sage Council, headed by Alice. It was the authority that could create a maze anywhere. Whether it was on the ground or underground, as long as Yerek was willing, he could use this authority to create a maze. Moreover, using this authority, Yerek could not only create a maze, but he could also turn an existing place into a maze. Whether it was a mansion, a building, an underground tunnel, a forest, or even an ordinary thick fog, it did not matter. Yerek could use the authority of the Great Maze to turn it into a place that could confuse people and become a dangerous area. The reason why Mount Vesuvius became like this must be because Yerek hid inside with the stone pillar of Hera and used the authority of the Great Maze to turn the volcano into a maze. With that layer of thick fog, no matter what method we use to go in, we will definitely come out in the end. Liliana showed a troubled expression. In addition, there are thunderclouds above the volcano. We can't use a helicopter to fly to the top of the volcano. Even Diana can't do anything about it, so we could only invite you here. If you want to deal with authority, you can only use the same authority in return. Humans can't find a way to resist the volcano now. Erica looked at Noah. And your authority has as many changes as Wellerslana's. Can you find a way to resist the Great Maze? That's not a problem. Noah slowly relaxed his furrowed brows. After pondering for a while, he ordered, "Let's do it this way. How about this? I'll go into the labyrinth. Erica, Lily, ask Diana to withdraw all the explorers. They can't go in anyway, so just stay around and wait for orders. If you find anything wrong, decide whether you should intervene or retreat." Understood. Erica and Liliana immediately nodded in response and retreated. Noah raised his head again and stared at Mount Vesuvius, which was covered in thick fog and had thunderclouds in the sky. A sneer gradually appeared on his face. "I'd like to see what tricks you're going to play, Yerek." With that, Noah closed his eyes, and the stone plate connected to the 10 patterns appeared in his mind. "I am the conqueror who can defeat 1,000 with 100, 10,000 with 1,000, and 10,000 with 10,000. Now, for me, who is on the side of justice, please shine brightly and bestow me with divine power." In Noah's mind, one of the 10 patterns on the outline of the stone plate lit up. It was a pattern depicting lightning. After using the thunder incarnation, Noah's body suddenly released a large amount of lightning. He turned into a dazzling bolt of lightning and rushed into the sky. He rushed into the flashing thunderclouds and disappeared without a trace. Chapter 547. In the sharp sound of the air breaking, Noah, who had transformed into lightning, soared into the sky, and then plunged into the thunderclouds on top of Mount Vesuvius. In an instant, he blended with the lightning in the thunderclouds and flew forward like a real thunderbolt. Of course, although it was said to be like a real thunderbolt, Noah could not achieve the speed of a real thunderbolt except for using the incarnation of thunderbolt to transform his body into a bolt of lightning in the true sense. After all, moving in space was limited by many factors. External factors such as resistance, wind, pressure, gravity, centripetal force, and centrifugal force would hinder the movement itself, so even if Noah transformed into lightning, he still could not achieve the speed of a real thunderbolt. It was precisely because of this reason that Laxas, who could also transform into lightning, could not achieve the speed of a real thunderbolt. Jalal's speed seemed to be the same as a meteor, but in fact, it was also affected by external factors and could not achieve the speed of a real meteor. If one wanted to achieve the speed of a real thunderbolt, only the incarnation of Phoenix could use the authority of speed to do it. Because the so-called speed did not refer to the ability to go from point A to point B at high speed, but the ability to substantially reduce the movement time from point A to point B, this ability itself did not represent speed, but represented the control of time itself. Therefore, people who used the authority of speed could enter the world of speed, where their senses were super-accelerated and the external world was super-decelerated. They were not affected by any external factors and could achieve the speed of a real thunderbolt. Similar to Noah's Phoenix, Yerek's lightning spark also had the same characteristics. By transforming himself into lightning, and then entering the world of speed, where he was not affected by any external factors, and moving, Yerek could achieve the speed of a real thunderbolt. Therefore, in terms of movement speed, the Phoenix and lightning spark were much faster than the thunder incarnation that could only transform into lightning, and it was not just a little faster. If he wanted to reach the top of the volcano quickly, then Noah should have used the Phoenix incarnation. However, Noah's thunder incarnation was not to use the speed when he transformed into lightning, but to transform himself into lightning. Boom! In the surging thunderclouds, bolts of lightning were mixed with terrifying sounds of thunder. As though they were trying to expel foreign enemies, all of them twisted and flashed through the space, hitting Noah, who had transformed into lightning again and again. If Noah still had an ordinary body, he would have been seriously injured even if he didn't die after being struck by those bolts of lightning. However, after transforming into lightning, the lightning in the thundercloud could not harm the same lightning at all. In addition, when using the thunder incarnation, he could also gain the ability to control lightning. Noah passed through the thundercloud almost unscathed and arrived in the sky above the Vesuvius volcano. From here, Noah could clearly see that apart from the small space above Mount Vesuvius that was covered by thunderclouds, the rest of the sky was clear. In other words, the thundercloud itself was not attracted by the power to control the sky, storm, or lightning. It was a setting set by the power of Yerek's great labyrinth. It could also be said that it was a trap, an obstacle, and could not be controlled by Yerek himself. It was also because of this that Noah knew that he could not use the storm incarnation to disperse the thundercloud, nor could he blow away the fog that shrouded Mount Vesuvius. Therefore, he chose to use the thunder incarnation to directly rush in. Maintaining his lightning incarnation, Noah hid in the thundercloud and looked down at the top of Mount Vesuvius below. At the edge of the crimson volcanic crater, on a rocky ground, a stone pillar stood there, gathering an astonishing amount of curse power. It released a beam of light, causing the curse power to soar into the sky. Impressively, it was the stone pillar of Hera. Chi! The lightning hiding in the thunderclouds suddenly burst out from the dark clouds and fell from the sky like a bolt of lightning. It landed on the edge of the volcano, in front of the stone pillar of Hera. When it landed, it scattered and condensed into a human form. The moment he landed, Noah cast his gaze in the direction of the divine pillar of Hera, and looked at the figure standing in front of the stone pillar. "Oh. You're already here?" Accompanied by such a deep and calm voice, a tall and straight man turned around and met Noah's gaze. "You're a lot earlier than I expected. I thought that the great labyrinth could delay you a little, but I didn't expect you to directly rush into the thundercloud. Should I say that you're worthy of being called the God Slayer? Do you need me to return those words to you word for word?" Noah looked at the man standing in front of the divine pillar of Hera, who exuded a rational and cold temperament, and responded indifferently with a calm face. Transforming one of the world's most famous volcanoes directly into a labyrinth, that's something only the God Slayer can do, right? I think this level is still acceptable. The man laughed mockingly. Compared to the other races who only know how to destroy, isn't this extremely creative power great? It's just a change of method to destroy, aren't you going to admit that it's destruction? Noah curled his lips. Changing the original volcano into something completely different, making it lose its original function. It's just a disguised form of destruction. Hearing this, the man, Yerek, narrowed his eyes and stared at Noah, as if he wanted to get to know him again. His eyes swept back and forth across Noah's body, and after a while, he opened his mouth. What a surprise. I thought that besides me, no one among the God Slayers would engage in a verbal confrontation with others, and every word was rational. I'm really surprised. Although I can understand your idea of equating the God Slayers with the beast, I need to remind you, Yerek, you are also one of them, Noah said to Yerek with a half-smile. Of course, I also heard that you have always thought that you are an exception among all the God Slayers, and I know that you don't want to be compared to other God Slayers, so that you can show your uniqueness and rationality. Unfortunately, even if the beast can recite the Bible, it is still a beast, and after all, it is impossible to become a devout believer. What do you think? Is that so? Yerek retorted, not to be outdone. If that's the case, I remember that you are also a part of this beast, right? So, awareness and whatnot were already there when I decided to be a beast, Noah said without changing his expression. Since you have already become a wolf, then don't wear the coat of sheep's skin. I have this idea, but as my predecessor, you seem to have a different point of view from me. You are so attached to this coat of clothing. There should be many people around you who say that you don't have self-awareness, right? TSK. Yerek was obviously speechless. It seemed that Noah was right. It is a good thing to be able to calmly accept your uniqueness, but it is different when you add in the rumors of wantonly destruction as if nothing has happened. You don't have the self-awareness of causing trouble to the people around you. Sure enough, you are also a God Slayer. Same here, Noah replied unhurriedly. Undoubtedly, you have the awareness that your actions will cause trouble to the people around you, but you do it without hesitation. You are just an awkward God Slayer, don't you think so? Suddenly, Noah and Yerek's eyes met in midair and burst into fierce sparks. In some ways, Noah and Yerek were indeed similar. As God Slayers, both Noah and Yerek had enough strategy and rationality in addition to the warrior part, and they also had the values of a normal person. However, Noah was the type who would not hesitate once he decided to do something. He was the type who did not care about trifles. Yerek was the type who would not hesitate once he decided to do something. He was the type who would do things his own way. How should it be said? Both of them were very unique and much more rational than the rest of their kind, but there was no doubt that they were still the kings of the God Slayers. The difference was that Noah had this self-awareness and accepted it calmly. He would not deny it, but Yerek seemed to care a lot about what others thought of him. He chose to avoid it and firmly refused to admit that he was the same type as the rest of his kind. Therefore, unknowingly, Yerek was more than one level weaker. Chapter 548. Yerek had always been a smart person. Although his personality was a little twisted, as the only one among the current God Slayers who completely carried out the intellectual style, Yerek did indeed have the wisdom and rationality that the other God Slayers did not have. Therefore, although he did not want to admit it, Yerek realized two facts in his brief exchange of words with Noah. 1. His fellow God Slayer, who had only reincarnated for about 3 months, had the ability to strategize and rationality no less than his. 2. Because he was aware that his identity as a God Slayer was different from others, he was extremely special, and he was very troublesome. If he continued to be stubborn when confronting someone who admitted everything without any guilt, in the end, the only one who would lose would definitely be Yerek. That was to say, unlike Noah, Yerek did not verbally admit that he was the same type as the other God Slayers, but in fact, he already felt guilty. Therefore, if he continued to argue about this, it would be fine if his opponent was someone else, but if his opponent's wisdom and rationality were no less than his own, then Yerek would be under a lot of pressure. Realizing this, no matter how unwilling he was, the rational part of Yerek's heart advised him not to continue. Therefore, Yerek effortlessly changed the topic. Although it's a question you already know the answer to, let me ask. Why did you not hesitate to break into my great maze and come here? You're right. This is indeed a question you already know the answer to. It's also a very stupid question. It doesn't seem like a question you would ask. Noah shrugged and threw these words without holding back. Have you ever seen a person who didn't chase after something was stolen? But if I remember correctly, this thing should belong to the witches of Nabali, right? Yerek said matter-of-factly. I don't remember this thing being your possession. Then think of me as a young man with a strong sense of justice who chased after someone who stole something. Noah turned his body and looked directly at Yerek. So, can you give it back? A strong sense of justice? Yerek said sarcastically. If I say no, will you obediently go back and pretend that you didn't see this? Then I'm sorry, but I have to tell you a piece of bad news. Noah's face was calm. You stole the holy pillar of Hera to lure Guinevere out, or perhaps you're interested in steal. Unfortunately, Guinevere invited me. There's no room for you here, Your Highness Black Prince. Unfortunately, I'm the kind of man who will prepare a stage for his debut, Yerek said slowly. So, the negotiation failed, right? Negotiation? Noah raised his head and looked at Yerek. His eyes gradually lit up. You didn't negotiate with me before I stole the divine pillar of Hera. Now that you're talking about negotiation, I'll tell you whether or not you made a mistake in doing this. As soon as he said those words, something that no one could understand happened. Buzz. Like a mirage, Noah and Yerek's figures suddenly disappeared at almost the same time. At some point in time, Noah had replaced Yerek's position and stood in front of the divine pillar of Hera. Yerek suddenly appeared on a rock not far away, and his body was still flickering with traces of electricity. I see. Noah turned his head and looked in Yerek's direction as if he understood something. Is this your godly speed? I've heard that you have the same god speed authority as me, but I didn't expect you to be so proficient in this power. Yerek's expression was slightly surprised. You know, this ability is very troublesome. It was indeed troublesome. Because there was no interference from external factors, he could increase his speed unscrupulously, allowing himself to reach the level of god speed. In such a state of super high speed, it was impossible to make accurate attacks. In other words, when entering the world of god speed, the person who used god speed would also lose the ability to attack. This problem wasn't difficult to solve. Just like when Noah fought Tony, he could use god speed to move to the desired position and then release the god speed in an instant to launch an attack. However, in addition to this, the authority of god speed also brought about other problems. The reason why humans couldn't achieve the true meaning of god speed was not only because of external factors, but also because of physical limitations. The human body couldn't support such super high speed movements. Therefore, using god speed would also bring a serious burden to the body, and even cause many negative effects. In the state of god speed, we will be super accelerated, and the surroundings will be super decelerated. That way, our heart rate, blood flow, and even the nerve transmission in our brain will be super accelerated. If something goes wrong, not only will our lifespan be shortened, but we will also collapse due to the difference in the flow of time around us. This is an ability that is both convenient and dangerous, Yerek explained with assurance. Therefore, the user of god speed can only control the time of use of god speed and pay attention to not overuse the ability, or like me. Saying this, the electric light on Yerek's body surged, and his body turned into a bolt of lightning. Directly abandoning the human body, naturally there won't be any burden on the body. After saying this, Yerek, who had turned into a bolt of lightning, disappeared from the space. It happened almost in an instant. A bolt of lightning abruptly appeared in front of Noah and condensed into a human form. Yerek held a sharp pen in his hand and directly stabbed at Noah's chest. However, in the next moment, Yerek was stunned. The sharp fountain pen pierced through the air. Noah, who had taken a big step to the right without anyone noticing, looked at Yerek mockingly. In the next second, he clenched his fist and punched. This punch was so fast that it couldn't be described with words. That was because Noah had activated the Phoenix incarnation, turning this punch into a Godspeed punch. Although it was impossible to accurately attack while in the state of seraphic speed, if he was facing a motionless target and didn't move himself, then he could use the Phoenix incarnation in the instant of the attack, and this seraphic speed punch would naturally not deviate from its path. Crackle. Unfortunately, this Godspeed punch didn't hit Yarek's body, but Yarek, who had suddenly turned into a bolt of lightning, hit the bolt of lightning, and caused a burst of electric shock. Then, the bolt of lightning disappeared. When it reappeared, Yarek, who had returned to his human form, was standing on the rock with a deep frown. You can see through my Godspeed? In the state of Godspeed, the human eye couldn't track it at all. But just now, Noah had indeed avoided Yarek's attack. So that's how it is. Yarek's expression became solemn. Do you also have the mind's eye skill like Salvador Doni's? Doni's mind's eye could also see through Godspeed. Those who immersed themselves in the practice of martial arts and reached the highest level could generally practice such a skill. For people like Doni and Luo, how to be able to see through Godspeed was not surprising. Unfortunately, although I also learned some combat skills, I didn't put in all my effort like Doni, so I don't know the mind's eye skill. Noah bluntly replied. However, my senses are very sharp. Even if I can't see through your Godspeed, I can still detect your approach. Then, the next step would be easy. Relying on his sensing ability to detect Yarek's approach, Noah only needed to wait for the moment Yarek launched an attack. After all, Godspeed couldn't support the user's precise attack, so Yarek had to release the Godspeed at the moment of attack. Taking advantage of this moment, Noah could rely on his superb sensing ability to dodge in advance. Only when Yarek released the Godspeed could Noah have time to dodge. Of course, sharp senses have more benefits than that. Ignoring Yarek's solemn expression, Noah raised his head and looked at the sky. I can even sense when an uninvited guest is approaching. Hearing this, Yarek seemed to have noticed something and suddenly raised his head to look at the sky. Kaboom! The next moment, a fierce bolt of lightning struck down from the thunderclouds. Chapter 549. Boom! Along with a loud clap of thunder, a bolt of lightning struck down from the thunderclouds above Mount Vesuvius. It tore through the air and space, and in a flash, it abruptly struck the ground. Noah and Yarek activated their own speed almost at the same time. One turned into a phantom under the power of the Phoenix incarnation, and the other turned into lightning under the power of the lightning spark. At the same time, they retreated violently to the rear. Immediately, the thunder fell between the original position of Noah and Yarek. Boom! With an astonishing loud noise, the thunder directly hit the ground, exploding a circle of violent impact wind, scattering gravel in all directions like a tornado. Relying on the authority of the speed, Noah and Yarek both avoided the blow unscathed. They removed the authority of the speed at a distance from the place where the thunder fell, revealing their figures and staring at the center of the impact wind. Ha, over there, a sweet voice laughed as it reverberated. As expected of the two kings of today's world. Not only were they able to detect the enemy's approach in time, but they were also able to dodge the attack. More importantly, both of them are users of Godspeed. It feels as if they were destined to meet each other. With such a sentence, in the center of the gradually dissipating impact wind, a blurred and hard-to-see fog appeared at the place where the thunder fell to the ground. Noah and Yarek both saw it. In the thick fog, there was a beautiful white horse. On the beautiful white horse, the god ancestor named Genivia was sitting on it, nestling on the chest of a person. It was a fully armored knight wearing a full set of white heavy armor. Even his helmet happened to cover his face, making it impossible for others to see his face. Not a single part of his body was exposed to the air, and he was holding a spike-shaped spear in his hand. The moment they saw the knight, both Noah and Yarek's bodies suddenly surged with majestic power, and their bodies and minds naturally entered the state of battle. There was no doubt that the knight was a god. Oh! Yarek said in a tone as if he had met an acquaintance. Finally appeared? Genivia? Noah first glanced at Genivia, and then turned his eyes to the knight in full armor. So, that is the patron of Genivia that Alice mentioned, right? Master Noah already knows this much? Perhaps Guinevere heard Noah muttering to himself. Like a child, Guinevere leaned in the arms of the knight and spoke in a coquettish tone. Yes, my uncle is the patron of this world to protect me. Sure enough. If it weren't for the existence of this so-called guardian, it would have been impossible for Guinevere to break through Yerek's great labyrinth by himself. Guinevere, the god ancestor, could break through Yerek's great maze, just like Noah did. Instead of breaking through the maze, he broke into the thunderclouds and went directly to the top of the volcano. Only a god who also had the power of thunder and lightning could do that. It seems that I didn't use the fog to cover the top of the volcano, but chose to use the thunderclouds as an obstacle. It was my miscalculation. Yerek looked at the knight behind Guinevere provocatively. It's been a long time, Lancelot. Lancelot? Noah's eyes suddenly focused on the knight. Lancelot. In Celtic mythology, he was one of the best and most outstanding knights of the Round Table led by King Arthur of ancient Britain. In terms of legend and martial arts, he was not inferior to King Arthur. He was also known as the Knight of the Lake, Lancelot. The patron of Guinevere was that legendary knight? Or rather, the patron saint of Guinevere was Lancelot, and from a certain point of view, he could not have been more suitable. After all, in the mythology, Guinevere was King Arthur's wife, and Lancelot was one of the most outstanding knights around King Arthur. These two people had an affair and betrayed King Arthur together. From this point of view, Lancelot should be the patron of Guinevere, which was the most appropriate result. In such a case, the voice of the knight riding a handsome white horse Lancelot sounded from the heavy helmet. Sorry, I came uninvited, but this is also the request of my beloved daughter, and I can't refuse. With such a sentence, Lancelot turned his horse's head, as if ignoring Noah, and confronted Yerek face to face. He showed his back to Noah in a dignified manner, as if he wasn't worried that Noah would launch a sneak attack. Although that was the case, Noah really wouldn't launch a sneak attack. His outstanding sensing ability told Noah that even if his back was exposed, Lancelot was still paying attention to him. As long as Noah attacked, then, the spear in his hand should instantly pierce through space and pierce Noah's chest, right? The knight in front of him really lived up to his reputation in the myths. However, for some reason, Noah felt that there was something wrong with the god in front of him. That feeling was difficult to express. Under Noah's sensing ability, Lancelot's existence was very strange, as if he wasn't here. It was really strange to the extreme. Just when Noah felt that something was wrong with Lancelot, who was confronting Yerek, raised his head and let out a surprised and exclaimed voice. Have you noticed my true face? This sentence was obviously directed at Noah. Uncle, please be careful, Guinevere, who was nestled in Lancelot's arms, suddenly said. Although that lord has only been a godslayer for a short time, but he is the most special one among all the godslayers. Not only does he have the power not inferior to any godslayer or god of disobedience, but he also has the same wisdom as Lord Alexander. He is a very strong opponent. Is that so? Hearing Guinevere's warning, Lancelot once again turned his horse's head and faced Noah, turning his back to Yerek. Seeing this, Yerek's expression sank. He wasn't angry, but he became dignified. Obviously, Yerek had the same feeling as Noah just now. Even if Lancelot showed his back to him, there wouldn't be any flaws. Since even my beloved daughter said so, Godslayer, it seems that you do have the power to satisfy the surging passion in my heart. If possible, I really hope to exchange blows with you and wield my spear to my heart's content, Lancelot said. However, I'm just a guardian, just the shadow of my beloved daughter. I can't have such willfulness. Shadow? Noah suddenly froze. Intuition told Noah that Lancelot's words were the key to understanding why his form of existence was so strange. Unfortunately, now was not the time. Nay. Suddenly, the majestic white horse under Lancelot let out a long neigh, stomped on the ground, and rushed in the direction of Yerek. That speed was more than 100 times faster than an ordinary horse. Then, Lancelot, who was sitting on the horse, raised his spear, and suddenly stabbed in the direction of Yerek. Yerek's expression changed, and he didn't hesitate to activate seraphic speed and disappeared on the spot. However, the tip of Lancelot's spear seemed to have extended at an unimaginable angle, and with a twist, it pierced in another direction. Rip! With such a sound, Yerek suddenly appeared in front of the tip of the spear that suddenly twisted in direction, and the clothes in front of him were already torn. That was the secret of the martial arts to break seraphic speed. Using the mind's eye to see through seraphic speed, capture it in the smallest and shortest path, and predict the opponent's next move to launch an attack. Noah had already seen this technique from Tony once, and this was the second time he witnessed it with his own eyes. If Yerek hadn't dodged well, this spear would have been enough to take his life. However, the moment Yerek dodged the spear, Lancelot, who was holding the spear, let go of his hand, and let the spear in his hand shoot out like an arrow. The target was the divine pillar of Hera. Whoosh! With a sharp sound, the sharp spear tore through the atmosphere and landed on the stone pillar. Chapter 550. Whoosh! With a sharp sound, the tip of the sharp spear began to surge with a huge wave of curse power. It wrapped around the tip of the spear and fell on the body of the divine pillar of Hera. Clang! Following the sound of metal colliding, the divine pillar of Hera was cleanly and neatly broken into two sections by Lancelot's throwing spear. Noah and Lancelot, who saw this scene clearly, were shocked at the same time. Then, the huge amount of curse power that was originally gathered on the divine pillar of Hera was distorted. Like magma, it spurted out and soared into the sky. Boom! An extremely huge amount of curse power surrounded by a dazzling green flash rushed into the sky like a torrent, directly dispersing the dark clouds on top of Mount Vesuvius. Like a ripple, it spread in all directions. Buzz! However, soon, these ripple-like huge curse power that spread out stagnated again. It gathered at a faster speed than when it surged out and gradually formed a huge figure. It was a dragon. A giant dragon with bat-like wings, short limbs reminiscent of a lizard, a head shaped like a crocodile, and sharp teeth arranged neatly like swords in its bloody mouth. Whoosh! The huge dragon wings were spread out, and the giant dragon looked down arrogantly. Its scales glowed like emeralds, and its eyes flashed with a cold fierceness. Roar! The roar that shook the air lingered in the sky above Mount Vesuvius and echoed. It's a success! Guinevere, who was sitting on Lancelot's horse, let out a joyful sound. Because the divine pillar of Hera transformed the essence of the earth in Nabali into curse power. Now, after Uncle's destruction, the essence of the earth condensed in the divine pillar of Hera, formed a winged serpent as we imagined and appeared on the ground. A brave and mighty dragon. Seeing it, my blood began to boil. Lancelot looked up at the sky, and his hand that was holding the spear that had returned to his hand trembled with excitement. The target of our steel hero, the dragon, is right in front of us. I really want to wave the spear in my hand and show off my bravery. Hearing the conversation between Lancelot and Guinevere, Noah and Yerek suddenly looked up at the giant dragon soaring in the sky. I see, Yerek muttered to himself. Their goal is not the divine pillar of Hera at all, but they want to use the power of the divine pillar of Hera to draw out the essence of this land and transform it into a mythological beast. So the divine pillars of Hera can still be destroyed? Noah laughed bitterly. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have gone through so much trouble. However, whether it was Noah or Yerek, both had a question. That is, Guinevere gathered the essence of this land through the divine pillar of Hera. Then, by destroying the divine pillar of Hera, it released the essence of the land to form the divine beast. The answer soon appeared in front of Noah and Yerek. Hum. As if it wanted to echo the roar of the giant dragon in the sky, a terrifying spell suddenly emerged from a corner of Mount Vesuvius without the slightest warning. Noah and Yerek simultaneously looked in the direction of the emergence of the spell. Noah could clearly feel that at the same time that the spell appeared, his body, which was originally filled with power because of Lancelot's appearance, seemed to have entered a state of excitement. The power rapidly emerged from all parts of his body and filled his whole body. Then, there was no doubt as to what the spell was. In the next second, a figure quietly emerged from the huge spell. Why did I descend here? With golden hair as dazzling as the sun and beautiful eyebrows that didn't make people feel weak, a man wearing a white robe and a cloak converged all the spell around him into his body and walked forward step by step. He raised his head, looked at the sky, and smiled happily. This kind of question isn't even worth asking. Since my enemy, the evil dragon, has appeared here, then why did I descend? Do I still need to answer the question? It wasn't clear if it heard the man's arrogant words, but in the sky, the majestic giant dragon lowered its head and stared at the man as if it had met its natural enemy. It let out a roar that shook the air. Roar. The roar that was full of intimidation was like a storm falling from the sky. It turned into a sound wave that blew down and directly hit the top of Mount Vesuvius, setting off a thick cloud of smoke and dust. In response, the man was not alarmed but delighted, and he even laughed out loud. Are you also excited because you've met your old enemy? Then let's continue our battle in the myths. After saying that, a broad blade suddenly appeared in the man's hand. He pointed at the giant dragon in the sky and issued a declaration. My name is Perseus, a dragon slayer, and also a hero who saves young girls. Evil dragon, bow down under my blade. In Greek mythology, the dragon slayer hero who slayed the snake demon Medusa and also fought against monsters who wanted young girls as living sacrifices on the beach. He finally won and rescued the beautiful princess. As the model of a hero who slays snakes and even dragons, the widely known god of bravery Perseus. The hero god of steel, who had appeared on this land because of the appearance of the dragon, had now appeared in front of everyone. As if there was only the giant dragon left in his eyes, Perseus' body suddenly turned into a flash of light, flew into the sky, and collided with the roaring dragon in the sky. Boom! In a loud noise, the giant dragon let out a shrill scream. Its body seemed to be hit by a flashing gun, and following the impact of the flash, it fell to the edge of the distant harbor. Perseus? Guinevere watched this scene happen, but turned his head indifferently and looked at Lancelot behind him. Uncle, is that famous dragon slayer the king we are looking for? I'm not sure, but the divinity of that hero seems to be slightly different from the king we are looking for, Lancelot said indifferently. No matter what, we have to observe first before coming to a conclusion. As soon as this sentence came out, a sneer sounded. Unfortunately, I don't like to be led by the nose, so let me attack from my side. Hearing this, Lancelot and Guinevere thought of something, but it was too late to react. Boom! All of a sudden, the volcano that everyone was in seemed to be on the verge of erupting. It was also as if something huge was crashing down from the ground, causing it to shake violently. Guinevere's expression changed, and Lancelot's whole body shook. The white horse under him couldn't stand still under the violent shaking, and it kept whining. Noah, who had already noticed something was wrong, jumped into the air before that, and instantly used the incarnation of thunder to turn into a bolt of lightning and flew up. Only Noah, who had superb sensing ability, knew what was going on. Under the volcano, a huge shadow of a human was hitting the ground, making the whole volcano shake violently. It was a shadow with long hair, a figure like a woman's body, but there was a bulge on its back like a wing, and the lower half of its body was not feet, but a fishtail. When Noah sensed its existence, he knew that it was the real thing. Black Prince Yerek had 5 powers. In addition to using lightning spark and big maze that could create a maze, Yerek also had the power called Faceless Queen. It was the power that could summon the mermaid queen whose face must not be seen by anyone. Once anyone saw her face, they would disobey their master's orders and directly leave. It was said that this mermaid queen could fly in the sky and move in the water. It had the destructive power to shatter iron towers, and it had the ability to appear and disappear unpredictably. Even the size of its body could shrink and shrink at will. Other than the rule that no one could see her face, she was almost omnipotent. I knew you would come. Did you think I wouldn't be prepared? Yerek's voice slowly sounded. I summoned it from the bottom of the volcano so that I could ambush you." As soon as he finished speaking, the ground at the top of the volcano collapsed. Chapter 551. Rumble. Amidst the deafening tremors, the surface of the summit of Mount Vesuvius collapsed without warning, burying Lancelot and Guinevere, who were riding on their panicked white steeds. Lancelot's white horse seemed to be able to fly. However, before the white horse could fly into the sky, the collapsed ground of Mount Vesuvius seemed to have been manipulated. It quickly buried Lancelot and Guinevere, who were riding on the white horse, in the mud and rocks, and brought them into the interior of the volcano at a speed that should have been impossible. Noah, who had flown into the sky in time to avoid the disaster, clearly saw this scene. He didn't think it was a coincidence. Come to think of it, that should be Yerek's trap, right? Mount Vesuvius had been completely transformed by Yerek's great maze. Using this authority, it was easy for Yerek to set up a trap to quickly bury Lancelot and Guinevere on the ground. In addition, he also deployed the Faceless Queen to ambush them underground. This Yerek was indeed a strategist who carried out the style of a strategist even in battle. Noah even suspected that the thundercloud that allowed him and Lancelot to easily break through, enter the summit of Mount Vesuvius, and find Yerek and the god's pillar of Hera might also be Yerek's arrangement. Because if one chose to break through the thundercloud and enter Mount Vesuvius, no matter who it was, they could only choose to land on the summit. In that case, it was equivalent to directly stepping into Yerek's ambush. In fact, Noah had already suspected this when he broke through the thundercloud and entered Mount Vesuvius. After all, if Yerek used the authority of the Great Maze flexibly, it could make people unavoidably fall into the maze and be unable to reach the location of Yerek and the god's pillar of Hera. However, the thundercloud could be directly entered by breaking through. In this way, wasn't the thundercloud a door specially left for others? It was precisely because of this suspicion that Noah had been vigilant and immediately reacted the moment the Faceless Queen appeared. He used the thunder incarnation to fly into the sky and avoid the result of falling into the volcano. Presumably, there should be various traps set up by Yerek inside the volcano, right? And Yerek definitely wouldn't mind counting Noah, Lancelot, and Guinevere as having died in Mount Vesuvius. Just like what Alice said, a guy with a completely twisted personality, but a good brain. If I didn't have the ability to react to unexpected situations at any time, I would probably have to deal with that guy carefully, right? Noah, in the form of a bolt of lightning, overlooking the crater of Mount Vesuvius that had been completely buried because of the collapsed ground, and sneered in his heart. However, as the saying goes, courtesy demands reciprocity. Since you've left me alone outside, I won't be polite. After saying that, Noah, who had transformed into a bolt of lightning, soared into the sky and swept across the horizon. At the same time, the sky that had just been cleared by the dissipation of the thundercloud was once again filled with the sound of air vibrations. Dark clouds suddenly emerged, and it didn't take long for the sky above Mount Vesuvius to be covered. Rumble. Lightning flashed and thunder roared in the dark clouds at the same time. The next moment, a huge bolt of lightning violently flashed out from the clouds, rubbing against the air. While the dazzling lightning illuminated the entire space, it struck down and landed on Mount Vesuvius. Boom! The crater of Mount Vesuvius, which had just been buried, reappeared with a deafening bang under the direct impact of the huge bolt of lightning. The soil and rocks scattered in all directions, and then fell one by one into the crater of the volcano, accompanied by the thick bolt of lightning, filling the entire interior of the volcano. Boom! The entire Mount Vesuvius shook violently at this moment, and a bone-chilling sound came from inside. It was as if the volcano was really about to erupt, causing continuous tremors. Seeing this, Noah, who had turned into lightning and blended into the dark thundercloud, secretly laughed in his heart. As the king of deicide and a famous god, this level shouldn't be enough to kill you. So, try your best to survive. After he finished speaking, Noah ignored the shaking Mount Vesuvius, which was on the verge of collapse due to the huge bolt of lightning, and rushed out from the slowly dissipating thundercloud toward the edge of the distant harbor. Roar. Before he reached the edge of the harbor, Noah heard an earth-shattering dragon roar. However, this roar was not filled with intimidation or majesty, but with endless pain and mournful feeling. Hearing this roar, Noah's heart tightened. There was no doubt that it was the roar of the dragon formed by the essence of this land because of the divine pillar of Hera. The sound was so miserable, that dragon should have been severely punished by Perseus, right? After all, even if it was a mythological beast formed by the essence of the earth of Nabali, it was only a beast of the gods that appeared in myths. It was a great enemy to humans, but to gods, although it could not be said that it was powerless, it had almost no resistance. This could be seen from the fact that Noah could control the mythological beast formed by the Stone of Gorgon. If he did not stop it quickly, that dragon would definitely be slaughtered by Perseus. That was a mythological beast formed by the essence of this land. If it was killed by the natural enemy of dragons and snakes, the god of steel, this land would never be able to recover its essence, and it would become a land of death and wasteland. Thinking of this, Noah sped up and flashed through the sky at a speed that could barely be seen by the naked eye. With bursts of thunder, he came to the edge of the harbor. At this time, Noah saw it. Near the coast, a dragon was lying on the ground, covered in wounds and blood. One of the dragon's horns on its head was directly broken, and its neck was almost cut off. Only less than a third of it was barely connected to its body. It was extremely miserable and dying. On the other side, a man dressed in an ancient style seemed to be deliberately prolonging his last attack to emphasize his magnificence. He held a large saber in his hand and charged toward the giant dragon. He mercilessly slashed at the giant dragon's broken neck, where only 1/3 of the giant dragon's body was left. At this critical moment, Noah directly removed the thunder incarnation, allowing his body to revert back to his human form from the state of lightning. Immediately after that, he immediately activated the phoenix incarnation. His body turned into a phantom, as if directly integrated into the space, and disappeared. Almost at the same time, Perseus, who was slashing at the dragon's neck, had a change in his expression. He suddenly stepped on the ground and stopped his body with a loud bang. Who? Then, a figure flashed in front of Perseus and threw a punch. With a gust of wind, it bombarded in the direction of Perseus. Oh! Perseus cried out in surprise. However, he calmly tapped the ground with the tip of his foot. His body gently leaped up and landed on the ground. He stabilized his body and raised his sharp and joyful eyes. He looked straight at the figure that had suddenly appeared in front of him. You are not an ordinary human, right? Hearing this, Noah did not answer. Instead, he glanced at the dying dragon behind him who was still trying to stand up from the ground. He was speechless. You're really ruthless, dragon slayer hero. I'm not so willful as to allow myself to be merciful to my former enemy. Perseus said as if it was a matter of course, but an expression of interest appeared on his sunny face. You, who just used the same power as God, should be the current God Slayer, and that power seems to have a familiar aura. Familiar aura? Noah frowned. What does this mean? In addition to power, there seems to be another aura on your body. Perseus looked up and down at Noah, then said with some surprise. However, this aura is not as familiar to me as your power. Instead, it's a little annoying. It can only be an aura closely related to the dragon snake. No, it should be above that. God Slayer, do you have a close relationship with the goddess of Earth? You're tuning in to the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.